Chapter 1575. Everyone had a rebellious mentality. Even Qin Zhao was the same. It was like a beggar telling Qin Zhao not to buy this car. It wasn't cost-effective. Mason knew the difference in status between him and Qin Zhao very well. He didn't have the right to ask or order Qin Zhao. Mesco Prior's goal was to stop Lila Gavik. But he'd offended Qin Zhao first. This wasn't a good start. It was Qin Zhao's. He'd obviously make decisions based on his own judgment. He wouldn't let someone else decide what he wanted. Mr. Chen, let's talk in private. Lila Gavik smiled. Let's talk over there, Qin Zhao said. Moscow wanted to follow, but he backed off after Qin Zhao's glare. The two went to a place with no one around. Mr. Chen, Lila Gavik said, you're definitely richer than me, so it doesn't matter how much I give you. Lila Gavik had been thinking about how to convince Qin Zhao. It wasn't easy. If he was facing a normal person, he could have many choices. He could give them money or something that normal people didn't have. He could even promise to give them power. But in front of Qin Zhao, these conditions were laughable. Especially what he often used, giving them power. If he told Qin Zhao these conditions, Qin Zhao would probably slap him in the face. He'd rub the legendary Son of Elements Amanda Dill on the ground. If he said he'd smash Amanda's head, he'd really do it. But I have a lot of connections. I even have connections with the political world. Qin Zhao furrowed his brows. He'd always avoided getting involved with the political world. The only person he knew who was involved in politics was Lauron, a former California senator. He'd retired at home now. This was because he had always been distrustful of the government. It wasn't because he was in a foreign country. It was the same even in China. Politics were dirty. Who knew when they'd be sold out by the politicians? I don't know what use this has for me, Qin Zhao said calmly. To be honest, Qin Zhao's current influence wasn't much weaker than a politician's. He could even use his capital to threaten a politician. Lila Gavik smiled. Political connections were just one of his bargaining chips. If Qin Zhao wasn't interested, he had other bargaining chips. He also understood Qin Zhao's resistance and distrust towards politicians and the government. In fact, it was the same for Lila Gavik. After all, to a certain extent, they were all aliens. I also have a special channel that allows me to get my hands on some magical materials, such as Huaxia's demon blood or Japan's holy mountain ashes and Europe's holy platinum. These magical materials are all controlled by various countries and regions, and they are not allowed to be sold abroad. However, I can get my hands on them, and I can even introduce these channels to you. Recently, Dongye Tianxi, Zhenke, and Ruan Faxi had been complaining about the scarcity of some magic materials. As a result, they had no choice but to choose substitutes when forging weapons or magic tools. If they could gain these connections, it would indeed be a good thing for the association. If you are willing to introduce these connections to my people, then I can provide you with a portion of Armandider's flesh. This deal had nothing to do with money, but a consideration for the long-term future. Truth be told, the supernatural society's connections had always been limited to the government. Only West had any contact with the government. He had always lacked connections in other fields. This is mainly because of the supernatural organization over the past 20 years. It had always been a third or fourth-rate organization. No one cared about the supernatural organization, so they had no interest in interacting with it. Mr. Chen, I have quite a lot of connections in the business world, Lila Gavik continued, trying to convince Qin Zhao. Business connections? It was useless to him. Qin Zhao's need for connections had always been up to fate. Qin Zhao also knew that the more connections he had, the better, but he had always been undisciplined. Even though Lila Gavik had introduced him to business connections, it would be difficult for him to maintain them. Oh, I have a question, Qin Zhao said. What problem? Please go ahead, Mr. Qin. Isn't that Amanda Didier known as the Son of Elements? But I didn't sense any other elemental magic other than the power of darkness in his body. He's the son of an elemental lord, so of course he's called an elemental son. Mr. Qin, Lila Gavik said matter-of-factly, do you have any other understanding of this title? Qin Zhao had thought that Amanda Didier should have other elements. In the end, Qin Zhao had beaten him to death, but Amanda Didier didn't have any other magic elements. Okay, one portion of Amanda Didier's flesh. I'll send it to you later, Chen Zhao said. Lila Gavich wanted to continue fighting, but he didn't have the capital to move Chen Zhao. He would use Lila Gavich's connections to exchange for the flesh of Amanda Didier that he dreamed of. It was hard to say who would win or lose. It could only be said that both sides were satisfied with the deal. But Chen Zhao had the upper hand. Because Chen Zhao was the supplier, he also had the absolute right to speak. Lila Gavich, on the other hand, was the demand side. What he had was a secondary resource. This meant that he didn't know if his resources were what Chen Zhao needed. He had to go through Chen Zhao's selection. Mr. Chen, what do you think about the conflict between the White Elves and the Dark Elves? No, Chen Zhao said directly. Lila Gavich wanted to get Chen Zhao and the supernatural organization to support him. But Chen Zhao wasn't interested. It doesn't matter to me who wins or loses. As long as your conflict doesn't involve ordinary people, I won't ask, Chen Zhao said calmly. But in Los Angeles, as long as your conflicts involve ordinary people, then the supernatural organization and I won't stay silent. Chen Zhao also had to show his attitude. He didn't want to be used by Lila Gavich. Plus, as an outsider, Chen Zhao couldn't be a judge for them. Lila Gavich was somewhat disappointed. He had wanted to pull Chen Zhao over to the Dark Elf side. That way, the barely balanced situation would immediately tilt to the Dark Elf's side. After all, Chen Zhao had absolute power in LA, and even in California. The White Elves might leave California because of Chen Zhao's existence. Unfortunately, Chen Zhao didn't plan on interfering. Chapter 1576. Mr. Chen, what do you plan to do next? We have our own plans. Chen Zhao refused to tell them more information. Actually, Chen Zhao had already planned to take the others out. But he was still wary of Lila Gavich. This wasn't the ground. Anything could happen. Who knew if he had some dirty tricks up his sleeves? Chen Zhao might not be afraid. But he couldn't guarantee the safety of the others either. For example, the earthquake earlier had separated them. Then, an accident had happened. Lila Gavich probably sensed Chen Zhao's wariness too. He didn't say anything. He nodded politely and bid farewell. At this moment, Moscow Prior ran over anxiously. Mr. Chen, I want to buy Amanda Didier's flesh too. Moscow's idea was simple. Since he couldn't stop the deal between Lila and Chen Zhao anymore. In that case, he couldn't fall behind others. Once Lila and Chen Zhao reached an agreement, he would definitely use Amanda Didier's flesh to evolve. Once Lila and Chen Zhao reached an agreement, he would definitely use Amanda Didier's flesh to evolve. In terms of high elf bloodline, the White Elves obviously had more. And the White Elves had always had an absolute advantage in this aspect. But if Lila Gavich used Armand Dill's flesh, he would evolve into a more advanced high elf bloodline. Then, the White Elves and Dark Elves might fall into a passive position in the conflict. Don't underestimate the influence of an elf with a high elf bloodline. High elves could suppress and motivate lesser elves because of their bloodline. If there was an all-out war and a high elf was present, the difference in individual strength between the two sides would increase by at least 20%. This was something Moscow couldn't accept. So, he had no choice. He had to obtain Amanda Didier's flesh too. But things were different now. In the past, Amanda Didier had been sealed here. It wasn't easy for them, but it wasn't completely impossible. But now, Chen Zhao had killed Amanda Didier. If he wanted Amanda Didier's flesh, he had to get it from Chen Zhao. Forcefully taking it was clearly the stupidest thing to do. Trying to take Amanda Didier's flesh from Chen Zhao's hands by force was no different from suicide. It could even lead to the extinction of the White Elves. This could be seen from the battle between Chen Zhao and Amanda Didier. Chen Zhao was definitely not a kind person. What can you give me? Chen Zhao did not reject Mason's request. He did not belong to any faction of the White Elves or the Dark Elves. So if he could accept Lila Gavich's deal, he could also accept Moscow Pearl's deal. Whatever price that Dark Elf is willing to pay, I can also pay the same price. Mason didn't seem to know about Chen Zhao's wealth. He thought that Lila Gavich had just bribed him with money. He's not paying for it, Chen Zhao said indifferently. Plus, he can't give me a second price. Moscow Prior wasn't stupid. In fact, he was a rather outstanding leader among the White Elves. Thus, he quickly understood that the deal between Qin Zhao and Lila Gavik was probably some special condition or some kind of exchange of benefits. Mr. Qin, what do you need? Or do you have any requests? As long as I can do it, I won't refuse. Chen Zhao smiled and shook his head. I don't know what I lack. Mason Prior was the biggest farm owner in California. He should be very rich. He might even be richer than Qin Zhao. Regardless of whether it was Qin Zhao or Mason, most of their assets were actually valued assets. It was not that they really had that much money. In terms of cash flow, Qin Zhao felt that he should have more than Mason. Of course, if Chen Zhao was willing to sell his beer factory shares, he could definitely sell them for a sky-high price. Mason's expression was troubled. Mr. Qin, we can discuss. At the moment, he could not think of what he could offer that could attract Qin Zhao. When you think about what you can offer, come and talk to me. Chen Zhao turned around and walked over to the members of the association. Gaia, how are you? I'm a bit exhausted. I can't transform into a fire dragon for a while. Gaia was a bit out of breath. It seemed that she had been badly injured. Let's leave here first, Qin Zhao said. President, what exactly happened when I was unconscious? Jalanash still couldn't get it out of her mind. No one explained the situation to her. But Jalanash still felt that she might have caused it. They did not tell her because they did not want her to feel burdened. After all, Jalanash had almost killed Gaia and seriously injured her. Let's go out first, Qin Zhao said. It's not a big deal. Chen Zhao did not think that it was a bad thing. After all, this battle had made everyone realize where they were lacking. Anyway, it did not cause any serious or irreversible consequences. Chen Zhao planned to take them back the way they came. Just then, Lila Gavik walked over again. Mr. Qin. Is there anything else? Can I leave with you? Lila Gavik asked awkwardly. But if I leave from the way I came in, I'll die at the exit. Lila Gavik knew Moscow Prowl would never miss such an opportunity. Of course, you can say that I'm paying you. Sure. Chen Zhao nodded. Everyone had followed him down this time with the thought of treasure hunting. Now that they had not found the treasure, it would be good to earn some extra money. Seeing how close Lila Gavik was to Qin Zhao, Mason was displeased. But he did not show it in front of Qin Zhao. Instead, he left with Undine, Bao, and Bader. He was actually worried that Qin Zhao and Lila Gavik had reached some kind of agreement and left them all here. President, can you find the exit? Maybe I can try a new method, Qin Zhao said. Everyone looked at Qin Zhao curiously, wanting to know what the new method was. Qin Zhao closed his eyes. The dark lava under his feet began to spread in all directions. However, the dark lava did not spread in a flat way. Instead, it spread in lines. Countless lines extended out from under Qin Zhao's feet. If Qin Zhao's dark lava spread out completely, it would cover an area of around 10 square kilometers. However, 10 square kilometers was only a drop in the ocean compared to the underground world they had explored so far. If they turned the entire surface into lines, they would be able to explore much more. Chapter 1577. The lines formed by the black magma were black. The longest was more than 200 kilometers. Finally, Qin Zhao opened his eyes. Okay, I found the way. No one expected Qin Zhao to have this move. Speaking of which, the effect of Qin Zhao's move was indeed shocking. But to Qin Zhao, it was very useless. Unless Qin Zhao was deep in a labyrinth-like area. Otherwise, this move was basically useless. Of course, it was also a good way to find people. This time, they didn't take the same path they'd come from. They came to a lava lake. It wasn't the one Qin Zhao had seen before. Right at this moment, an extremely sharp and resonant cry of a bird rang out. Everyone looked up. There was a huge beast hiding on a rock hundreds of meters above the lava lake. It was a bird. A huge bird almost 100 meters long. Immortal bird. It was an immortal bird. The immortal bird suddenly spread its wings. It was originally hidden in the darkness and only its silhouette could be seen. However, the moment it spread its wings, its body ignited with golden flames. Lila Gavich stared at the huge immortal bird in shock. Too big. It was really too big. When the immortal bird spread its wings, it was even bigger than a regular adult dragon. Its target was clear: Chen Zhao and the others. Along with an earth-shattering heat wave, it swept over. That peerlessly terrifying aura made people feel terrified. But no one felt despair. Because Chen Zhao had already stood out. The dark magma suddenly swept over and bound the phoenix of immortality. However, the undying bird's body shook and the dark magma was shattered. The immortal bird shot at Chen Zhao like an arrow. When it was 60 meters away from Chen Zhao felt his world churn. Everyone retreat! Chen Zhao yelled. This was the immortal bird's territory. As long as you touched it, you would feel like you were soaking in lava. None of the people behind him could resist such a domain. Chen Zhao shot out. The moment Chen Zhao charged into the immortal bird's territory, Chen Zhao felt like his skin was about to burn. It was even hotter than magma. Chen Zhao endured the pain and punched the immortal bird into the lava. Chen Zhao's body was already smoking. Everyone's hearts were pounding. Chen Zhao seemed to be injured. After all, he hadn't been injured in the previous battle with Amanda Didier. Just then, the immortal bird charged out of the lava. It bit Chen Zhao, who was in the air, and pulled him into the lava. Everyone cried out in surprise. All of a sudden, a pillar of lava burst forth. Chen Zhao charged out of the lava. His skin was like heated metal, glowing red. Even though Chen Zhao could resist the heat of the lava, fighting in it wasn't the best choice. The lava was the phoenix's main battlefield. Under the magma, the immortal bird's huge body was moving rapidly. He could vaguely see the phoenix's figure. Although the undying bird was a bird, its swimming speed in the lava wasn't inferior to that of a fish. Fighting the undying bird in such an environment was definitely not a good choice. Chen Zhao used the clone and Dharma return again. The undying bird rushed out of the magma once again, but this time, its eyes directly shot out red rays. Chen Zhao's chest was pierced. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Chen Zhao also didn't expect the undying bird to have this move. It wasn't that Chen Zhao had never met an opponent that could shoot rays. However, their penetrative power wasn't as strong as the undying bird's red rays. Chen Zhao looked at his pierced chest. Wounds were harder to heal than normal physical injuries. Just then, the undying bird opened its mouth and bit at Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao suddenly raised his hand and grabbed the undying bird's beak. Lava spewed out of its beak. Chen Zhao took out the black trident and stabbed it into its beak. The undying bird struggled and fell into the lava with Chen Zhao. A while later, Chen Zhao came back with the undying bird's corpse. Everyone was shaken to the core. They knew that Chen Zhao was extremely powerful. However, the undying bird's terror also made them shudder. The undying bird's body started burning wildly. Chen Zhao's heart skipped a beat. Was it going to be reborn? No, he couldn't let it be reborn. Chen Zhao poured the water stored in his spatial ring into the undying bird's mouth. The undying bird, which should have been dead, actually moved again. Its body struggled frantically. The flames on its body weakened greatly too. Green smoke kept coming out. Chen Zhao pressed down on the undying bird's head. Finally, the flames were extinguished. Its golden body eventually turned dark red. His wings, which were originally shiny, were now dim and lifeless. Undying bird! Great, undying bird! Ruan Faxben exclaimed in surprise. Without a doubt, he would have a chance to get the materials from the undying bird when he returned. Just like the dragons, the undying bird was also full of treasures. Chen Zhao had forced Ruan Faxben to join the supernatural organization. Even if he was kicked out now, he wouldn't leave. No organization in the world could provide him with such abundant and precious magic materials. Why had he cheated in the past? It was all to earn magic materials for his alchemy research and experiments. But now he didn't need to do that. He could get the most precious magic materials in the supernatural organization. President, are your wounds okay? I'm fine. Chen Zhao grinned. It was painful, but it wasn't too big of an impact. The scorching fire elements were still attached to the wound, which affected its self-healing speed. But it couldn't really stop Qin Zhao from healing. But this lava lake is too big. President, how do we go over? The lava lake was at least a dozen square kilometers. If Gaia wasn't injured, she could carry him over. But now, she was injured and couldn't transform. Actually, it wasn't that she couldn't transform at all, but they clearly didn't want to make Gaia's injuries worse. Chen Zhao looked at the entire lava lake. The dark lava started spreading along the walls and turned into a black and red plank road. Let's walk over it. Chen Zhao realized that his control of the dark lava had greatly increased after expanding 10 times. At first, everyone was still a bit scared. They weren't sure if they would sink in. But soon they realized that they were worried too much. Unless Chen Zhao wanted to harm them, nothing would happen to them on the dark lava. 30 minutes later, everyone walked across the plank road and finally reached the other side. There are still some spider demons ahead. We can get rid of them later and earn some extra money. Chapter 1578. The battle was over. The ground was covered in spider corpses. Everyone began to collect the arachne corpses. Lila Gage was confused. He didn't understand what the supernatural organization was doing. However, it could be seen from this battle. Chen Zhao wasn't the only one in the organization. Everyone in the team had decent combat ability. After the battle, everyone performed very well. Not everyone had shown their power in the battle against Jalanush. No one dared to move when they faced Armand Didier. But that was because he was too strong. Facing these spider corpses was their true power. Mr. Chin, what's the use of these spider corpses? They're delicious. Their corpses also contain a substance called earth essence. It can slightly increase a spiritualist's constitution and magic power. Lila Gage's heart jumped. Are you selling this earth essence? Depends, Qin Zhao said indifferently. He didn't answer Lila Gage immediately. It was mainly because Qin Zhao didn't have much money. A one-time sale wouldn't be of much value to him and the organization. How much could Lila Gage pay? A few $100,000 or a few million? He might as well keep it for his own people. Lila Gage might not be interested in the spider corpses. He actually wanted to use this as an excuse to have a deeper connection with Qin Zhao and the supernatural organization. As long as there were benefits, it would be a guarantee for the Dark Elves. Chen Zhao had said that he definitely wouldn't get involved in the conflict between the White Elves and the Dark Elves. But in reality, as long as there were benefits and relationships, people couldn't be absolutely neutral. They didn't encounter any more trouble later on. Occasionally, 1 or 2 underground monsters would appear out of nowhere, but they were quickly cut down. Chen Zhao had to collect all of Ruan Faxi's monsters. He wasn't sure if every monster's corpse would be useful, but he couldn't waste them. He wanted to study them and see which ones were useful. The journey could be said to be calm and uneventful. But it really wasn't a short journey and it wasn't easy to walk. They walked for at least 10 hours. They finally arrived at the first underground lake. Everyone heaved a long sigh of relief. Next, they rested where they were, ate, and drank. After dilly-dallying for 2 to 3 hours, they finally returned home. However, the entrance to the underground river was easy to enter but hard to exit. Chen Zhao could only hold the black trident and control the water to send everyone out. Wow, this is a great place. I want to buy this place. Lila Gevich floated on the water and looked at the beautiful surroundings of Mirror Lake. Everyone looked at Lila Gavik. Lila Gage noticed that everyone was looking at her strangely. What happened? Lila Gavich asked in confusion. I'm going to build a villa over there. I'd be honored if you could visit my house in the future. I don't think you can afford it. But because this is the president's home. Jalanash said, but the typhoon last time destroyed his house, but he's planning to rebuild it. If you want to force him, you'd better think about whether the president will agree. Pretend I didn't say anything. Lila Gage decisively admitted defeat. He couldn't beat Qin Zhao and didn't have as much wealth as Qin Zhao. He didn't want to have a conflict with Qin Zhao at all. A while later, Qin Zhao also emerged from the water. The air outside was fresher than underground. Everyone was greedily breathing in the air outside. Everyone returned to the shore. "Mr. Chen," Lila Gage said, "leave your contact number." Chen Zhao left Lila Gavich a phone number. "Let's go back to the association too." Chen Zhao wasn't really happy about the underground exploration. It was mainly because an elite had lost an arm. It was also because of Moore, which made Moore feel very guilty. Although an elite had been comforting Moore. He also said that Moore could stop working at the insurance company. But Moore could tell that an elite was comforting him. The people in the association heard that they were back and were all waiting in the building. Everyone got out of the car. West immediately walked up to them. "Elite, your arm, it was an accident," an elite said, smiling honestly. "Move aside," Chen Zhao said. Everyone looked at Chen Zhao, not knowing what he was going to do. Chen Zhao took out the huge body of the phoenix. Everyone who hadn't gone underground was shocked. "Everyone, work hard today and cut up the phoenix's body," Chen Zhao said. "At the same time, extract the essence of the earth from the phoenix's body." Back then, Chen Zhao had absorbed the phoenix's earth essence and achieved clear sky and earth perfection. Therefore, Chen Zhao wanted to leave a backup plan for the association in case anyone reached this step in the future. If anyone reached this step in the future, they could use the earth essence. The phoenix from last time was more than 10 times weaker than this one. Chen Zhao didn't know how much earth essence he could extract from the phoenix. Chen Zhao stated his intentions. Everyone's eyes lit up. However, even the strongest Gaia was worlds apart from clear sky and earth perfection. Don't waste the undying bird's flesh, bones, and feathers. Share some of the undying bird's flesh with everyone. You can keep it for yourselves or bring it back for your family. However, if you bring it back for your family, don't eat too much. Ordinary people can't eat too much. But the phoenix's body was too big. Chen Zhao had to move the immortal bird's body to the man-made lake. Even so, the headquarters still reeked of blood. Everyone in the headquarters came out to help. A few normal people set up a barbecue rack and helped them cook. These normal people were the subordinates of the gang leader, Seely Dirk. They were basically completely integrated into the association now. Although Chen Zhao had said that he would imprison them for life, they were actually outer members now. It would be fine if Chen Zhao had killed them on the spot, but it wasn't so easy to imprison them forever. After a while, apart from some restrictions, they still had a lot of space to move around. They were also given salaries. At least, it was more than what they could earn outside. It was also more stable. Moreover, after coming into contact with him for a long time, they were now at ease with their duties. Of course, the main reason was that they didn't dare to go against Chen Zhao. In the association, Chen Zhao was truly like a demon king. Chapter 1579. Henry was probably the weakest in the association. Back then, he'd followed Seely to the association and ended up becoming Gaia's sparring partner. Then he became Klaus and the Lightning Team's sparring partner. But ever since he'd awakened his bloodline, his status had risen. However, the power of his bloodline was still something that no one could accept. Chen Zhao had even forbidden him from using it in the headquarters. But Henry was quite happy about it. After all, to him, it was a superpower. Actually, his attack power wasn't that great. But it wasn't like he didn't have any abilities. If he farted, he could pollute an area of 1,000 meters. He could make normal people within range lose their ability to fight. He could also ignite them and set them on fire. Normally, he could only go to the trial tower and harm the monsters there. However, he didn't seem to find a way to increase his power. After awakening, his power hadn't increased much. Every time he saw Chen Zhao bring people to carry out this mission or that mission, he was envious. But his power was still not up to standard. This made him very anxious. The association had also given him many benefits. "Henry, take this. See if it can increase your power." Chen Zhao tossed a thumb-sized bottle to Henry. It contained the essence of the earth. There wasn't a lot of it. Henry put it away carefully. These things couldn't be bought outside. The group found a few cushions and placed them under the phoenix's body. They didn't want to waste the phoenix's blood. But the blood still seeped out. The shore of the artificial lake was already dyed red. The bright red lake water was still seeping out. There weren't many fish in the lake. It was originally an artificial lake, but then it was connected to a river. West had also raised some fish, but the association kept harming the lake every now and then. For example, Chen Zhao would throw a grenade into the lake from time to time. As a result, there weren't many fish in the lake. However, there were still some fish that came after smelling the fishy smell. The phoenix's blood was drained first and then its feathers were plucked. Other people really couldn't do the job of plucking hair. Only Gaia, Chen Zhao, Klaus, and the lightning team could do it. Without a certain level of power, they couldn't pluck the phoenix's feathers. In that case, it would be a huge project. At this time, Fei Lai brought the two kids to the headquarters. There was also a group of pets, all of them came. Fei Lai came because of Chen Zhao's call. But when she saw the scene, she lost interest and went to her room. Little Jerlin and little Larissa, on the other hand, came to watch the show excitedly. But what attracted them the most was the roast meat. The smell of barbecued meat was very fragrant, and it completely washed away the smell of blood. Little Jerlin walked to the barbecue rack, and someone immediately cut off a small piece of meat for her. Then little Jerlin ran away happily. Little Larissa pouted. She wanted to eat too. Recently, Chen Zhao and Fei Lai had fed her some food that was easier to digest. It was just that the barbecued meat was hard to digest, so she had never eaten it before. Chen Zhao looked at little Larissa who was sitting on Princess. "Henry, give me a small piece of meat and mince it for my daughter. Also, give Princess a big piece too." Not far away, Abitos snuck behind the undying bird. It opened its mouth and bit the undying bird's butt. No one cared about him. Ruan Faxi was collecting the blood and feathers of the undying bird. Everyone in the association couldn't stop. Even Aduz, his old arms and legs, was helping from the side. Chen Zhao even wanted to summon the demon army to help. The undying bird that had been stripped of its feathers was now a bald chicken. It didn't look as majestic as when it was alive anymore. Luang Faxi had expended a great deal of effort. He dug out the undying bird's two eyeballs. The two eyeballs were like two huge red pearls. They didn't look like they were made of flesh and blood. They were more like inorganic matter. "President, these eyeballs are good stuff." Chen Zhao looked at the two eyeballs. They probably weighed more than 100 kilograms. They shone with a demonic red light and indeed had a breathtaking beauty. Just then, little Jerlin ran over again. "Dad, I want this." Little Jerlin always picked good stuff. "Then I'll give you one." Ruan Faxi was a bit reluctant, but he didn't say anything. "Say what? You're saying that these two phoenixes' eyeballs can't be used as toys for little Jerlin?" Chen Zhao had killed the undying bird. Why couldn't he? Chen Zhao's pets also ate and drank here. Basin soared in the air and landed from time to time to pick up a piece of meat. After the undying bird was cut up, everyone started extracting the earth essence in the flesh. They extracted at least 30 liters of golden earth essence. The quality was even purer than the big spider's earth essence. The earth essence couldn't be shared with anyone. Chen Zhao and West thought that they'd share it with whoever really needed it. Giving them the high-purity earth essence now was too much of a waste. They worked from noon until 3 or 4 in the morning. Everyone was exhausted. Finally, they finished cutting up the undying bird and extracting the essence. Chen Zhao started checking Angelite's injuries. Angelite's arm had been cut off by the saint carving. Almost a day had passed, but there was still residual magic power in Angelite's wound. However, Chen Zhao realized that the dark magma could absorb the magic power. "West, I'll concoct a potion for you in the next few days. It can help you regrow your limbs, but I'm afraid you won't be able to appear in front of your family or work at your insurance company for the time being." "President, can my arm grow back?" "No problem." Chen Zhao wasn't worried. Back then, Rasva's grandson Daniel's leg had been bitten off by a shark. A potion made from a perfect demonic crystal could make his leg grow back. After almost 2 years of research, Chen Zhao had a deeper understanding of demonic crystals. Hearing this, an elite heaved a sigh of relief. After all, losing an arm was a big blow to him. Whether it was in life or in battle, losing an arm would cause a lot of inconveniences. "President, how long will it take?" "About 2 weeks. Looks like I'll have to call my family," an elite said. What about the company you work for? No company allows employees to be absent for 2 weeks without any reason. An elite didn't care much about his job. To him, selling insurance was just a part-time job. The supernatural organization paid him 10 times more than what he earned from selling insurance. Moreover, selling insurance took up too much of his time. Now, he had found a justifiable reason to quit that job. Please remember this book's domain name, 9 Heavens Godly Emperor Mobile Version. Chapter 1580. To be honest, Chen Zhao was speechless about the divorce rate in America. There were so many people in the association, except for those who were not married. Of those who had families and businesses, only an elite had a wife and children by his side. For example, West and Aduz had basically been divorced for decades. Apparently, West had been married 3 times. For example, Klaus had been married twice. Hey, Ulisa, I'm going out of town and can't go home. An elite called his wife. An elite, can't you see what time it is? Angelite's wife, Ulisa, complained. Sorry. I'm in China now. I forgot about the time difference. China? You're in China? Yes. But your passport is still at home. How did you go to China? An elite really wanted to slap himself in the face. He had gone too far. He did not know how to end it now. An elite, tell me the truth. Do you have a woman outside? Ulisa asked suspiciously. To be honest, Ulisa had always been suspicious of an elite. Because an elite often did not go home after work. She had called his insurance company several times, but they all said that an elite was not at the office. But an elite did not go home either. For example, an elite had said that he was going on a business trip for 3 days. Then she called Angelite's company. She found that an elite was not going on a business trip. Instead, he had asked for a 3-day leave. No, definitely not, an elite said quickly. He did not know how to explain it. Then where are you now? Ulisa questioned. I really have something to do. I can't go home. If you don't have another woman, then go home immediately. It was no wonder that Angelite's wife was like this. Angelite's behavior was too abnormal. Moreover, it was not just once or twice. An elite could not say it out loud. I really can't go home now. If you don't come back, we'll get a divorce. What? No, I really didn't cheat, an elite defended himself. But how could he explain it? There was no proof. Moreover, he himself was full of doubts, so he really couldn't explain himself. If you don't appear in front of me before the sun sets tomorrow, then we will divorce. Angelite's brain was about to explode. Divorce? An elite put down the phone and quickly found Jalik. Jalik, do you have a way to install a prosthetic leg for me? It's best if it's a simulation, an elite said. Jalik was busy at the slaughterhouse. He looked back at an elite. Didn't the president say that he could help you regrow your arm? Why do you still want artificial limbs? I want to go back to see my wife, or she will divorce me. She thinks I have an affair. Oh, you don't? Jalik teased. What time is it now? Hurry up and think of a way for me. It's not difficult to make an artificial limb, but in such a short time, it's just an empty shell at most. Go find Ruan and ask him to come over and make a magic artificial limb with me. It can temporarily serve as your arm. Okay, I'll go now. An elite anxiously ran to find Ruan Faxburn. Actually, Ruan Faxburn refused. After all, this was a waste of time for him. However, an elite brought Chen Zhao out. Ruan Faxburn agreed without hesitation. If he really told Chen Zhao and Chen Zhao showed up, it would be ugly. Ruan Faxburn was indeed a famous alchemist. However, his value was to solve problems for the people of the society. 7 or 8 hours later, Jalik and Ruan Faxburn worked together and finally made a magic artificial limb. Then, an elite rushed home anxiously to put out the fire. Chen Zhao heard about this. However, he could not do anything about it. As for whether an elite could successfully put out the fire, it was hard to say. However, if an elite really divorced his wife, an elite would probably hate more for the rest of his life. At noon the next day, Chen Zhao and Fei Lai brought the whole family home. Ever since little Jerlin obtained the Eye of the Phoenix, she had abandoned the undying skull hanks. However, little Larissa had inherited her sister's hobby. She grabbed Hanks and started gnawing again. "My dear master," Hanks said in despair, "is gnawing on skulls an inherited hobby in your family?" "It means you still have value," Chen Zhao said calmly. The underling ran over and handed Chen Zhao a glass of juice. At the same time it said, "Master, I want to plant some apples in the villa. Can I?" Chen Zhao waved his hand. "But don't destroy the villa's design." Chen Zhao picked up Hanks's head. "At least I gave you information about Treasure Island," Hanks said unhappily. "But the information you provided is useless. Until now, I haven't even seen a shadow of Treasure Island." "It's not my fault," Hanks argued. "No, to me it's your fault." "That's not fair. I'm the master. You're talking about fairness with me?" "Fine, master, I was wrong." "Yeah. Little Larissa pulled Chen Zhao's leg and reached out to grab it. She seemed to want Hanks's head. "Take it." Chen Zhao tossed Hanks's head to little Larissa. Chen Zhao walked to the elevator and went down to the beach. At home, Chen Zhao rarely jumped down, especially in front of little Jerlin and Larissa. It would be a bad example for them. As soon as Chen Zhao entered the water, the 5 generals and the dolphin family swam to him. The 5 generals and the dolphin family were similar to dogs. They were very close to their masters. Once they recognized their masters, they would be very clingy. Chen Zhao would go into the water to play with them whenever he was free. Chen Zhao started to dive into the deep water. The 5 generals and the dolphin family followed closely. Occasionally, the dolphin would toss a fish before Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao found the giant clam. The giant clam had moved more than 100 meters from its previous position. Chen Zhao had to catch it again every time. The giant clam wasn't like a shark or dolphin with a brain. It didn't have a brain, so Chen Zhao couldn't subdue it and make it recognize him as its master. However, Chen Zhao felt that the giant clam was something good, so he treated it as his private collection. He also had the 5 generals and the dolphin family watch the giant clam so that it couldn't escape from its territory. Chapter 1581. As soon as Chen Zhao came out of the sea and reached the shore, he saw a car stop on the road above the beach. Then 5 or 6 young men and women got out of the car. Most of them were wearing swimsuits. "Wow, it's so beautiful here. How come I didn't know there was such a beautiful beach in the past?" A few girls were shouting excitedly. Chen Zhao frowned. He was annoyed to see the young people get out of the beach directly. Chen Zhao came to the beach. "Hey, this is private land. You better leave." The young men who came down froze for a moment. Just then a tall guy walked out. He was a head taller than Chen Zhao and only wore a pair of boxers. The young man walked up to Chen Zhao and looked down at him. "Asian, what right do you have to say this is private land? There's no notice board here." Chen Zhao raised his head and looked at the young man. "I'll say it again. This is private land," Chen Zhao repeated. "What if I don't leave?" The tall guy looked at Chen Zhao mockingly. "Karan, ignore him," a blonde girl said. "Let's play." The girls were all wearing swimsuits. To be honest, if they'd told Chen Zhao nicely, he might not have chased them away. The boys and girls seemed to be sure that Chen Zhao couldn't do anything to them. They walked past Chen Zhao and started playing. What was worse was that they started eating and drinking without restraint on the beach. There was beer, drinks, and all sorts of packaged snacks. After eating, they would throw their trash on the beach. All of these actions stimulated Chen Zhao's nerves. Just then, they started going into the water. Chen Zhao's lips curled into a smile. Suddenly, a wave pushed them away from the shore. Before they could react, a shark fin blocked their way. Shark, what? Help! The 5 tiger generals had already blocked their way back to the shore. The sea kept pushing them into the deep water. Chen Zhao watched as the young people flopped around in the water in panic. Their faces were filled with evil smiles. Chen Zhao walked to the shallow water but didn't go in. He always had a smile on his face as he looked at those young people with a strong desire to live. No matter which way they swam, the water would knock them over. Not only did the 5 tiger generals block their way, but they also kept dragging them into the water. However, Qin Zhao didn't plan on killing them. He just wanted to teach them an unforgettable lesson. No one knew when little Jerlin had run to the beach. "Dad, what are you doing? What happened to those brothers and sisters?" "No, nothing," Qin Zhao said indifferently. At this time, the 5 tiger generals left. Chen Zhao didn't control the water anymore and let them go ashore. The first to come ashore was the big man called Colin. However, just as he reached the shore, a wave came from behind and slammed him onto the beach. Chen Zhao walked up to Colin and squatted down. "I told you this is private property. Without my permission, you can easily die here." The young men behind him also escaped to the beach one after another. "You better take the trash away." At this moment, Colin stood up again. He seemed to have recovered. He was looking at Qin Zhao in annoyance. "What if I don't?" With a smile, Qin Zhao looked at the young men. "I don't just have sharks here." Roar! Princess crawled out of the bushes. Seeing Princess' terrifying body, everyone peed their pants in fear. "Bear? Brown bear." Qin Zhao kept smiling, looking at the panicked young men. "Are you willing to take the trash away now? You trash. Who? You raised this bear? If you dare let it hurt us, you'll go to jail." Colin's aura had already weakened. His voice was also much softer. "Do you know about the fortress agreement? This is my territory and I've already ordered you to leave. If you want to stay, then stay forever." Qin Zhao sneered. "Don't think I don't know what the fortress agreement is. I'm a law student. I know very well that as long as we don't do anything threatening, the agreement won't take effect," Colin said, pretending to be calm. "Is that so? But what if you all die here?" Colin suddenly had the urge to do something. He looked at Qin Zhao and then at little Jerlin beside him. Suddenly, Colin charged at Qin Zhao and reached out to pinch him. Poof! Qin Zhao didn't give him the chance. He broke a few of Colin's ribs with one punch. "Ah!" the girls screamed. The other 3 boys ran at Qin Zhao at the same time. They looked like they were going to attack Qin Zhao or snatch Colin back. However, Qin Zhao thought that they were going to attack him. Without any explanation, Qin Zhao knocked them all down. The 3 girls were even more terrified. They'd thought that Qin Zhao had a medium build and was Asian. So, they thought that Qin Zhao was easy to bully. They didn't think that Qin Zhao not only had an evil beast at home but was also so skilled. The 4 boys were all beaten to the ground. "You have 2 choices now. Be eaten by my pets or take the trash away, including these 4. The girls didn't have the courage to say no. Under the double threat of Qin Zhao and Princess, they could only pick up the trash on the beach in fear. Then, they helped the 4 boys to the ground and carefully escaped. "Don't step on the grass. There are stairs there." Qin Zhao yelled. "Dad, you're amazing." Jerlin looked at Qin Zhao, her eyes shining. "Yes, of course." Qin Zhao picked up Jerlin, a proud expression on his face. Nothing was happier than being praised by one's own daughter. "Dad, Mom, are you getting a divorce?" Lan looked at her arguing parents. "Of course not." Smiling apologetically, Enrich glanced at his wife. Amy tried to control her emotions. She didn't want to argue with Enrich in front of her 10-year-old daughter. However, she still felt that Enrich had another woman outside. This was something no woman could tolerate. Divorce was obviously the last choice. If she didn't have to, she didn't want this to happen. First, Enrich had confessed to her. However, Enrich refused to admit it no matter what. This was what she was most angry about. Just then, Engelite's phone rang. "Mr. Enrich? Your son Colin is in the hospital right now." Chapter 1582. Enrich froze for a moment and turned to his wife, Amy. "Colin is in the hospital." Amy took a few deep breaths. "What happened?" "I don't know. Let's go to the hospital first." They didn't delay and Lan also went to the hospital. Brother. Lan and her brother's relationship was quite harmonious. Enrich and Amy entered the ward and saw their son wrapped in gauze. They both looked worried and distressed. However, Enrich played the role of a strict father and immediately said, "Colin, I heard that you were beaten up by someone. What happened? What did you do outside?" Amy was still worried about her son's injury. Hearing Angelite's words, she suddenly showed a bit of anger. Enrich, why do you think this is Kellen's fault? Why can't someone else attack Kellen? AI me, don't be unreasonable. I just want to figure out what's going on. You're saying I'm unreasonable? Why don't you say you have a woman outside? I don't. Then why is it that your whereabouts are always so unpredictable? Also, you lied to me that you went abroad. I have my own reasons. Angelite's tone suddenly weakened. Then explain clearly. Don't tell me you're a secret agent and can't let your family know? Amy sneered. She knew Engelite too well. They could be considered childhood sweethearts. When Engelite was in elementary school, he was bullied but didn't dare to fight back. He was cowardly and introverted. It was already unexpected that he would become an insurance salesman. In Amy's eyes, Engelite had always been a cowardly man. In fact, Engelite acted like that in front of his wife at home to maintain his marriage. Contrary to his personality, Amy was strong-willed and impulsive. And she was too opinionated. Even too confident. As long as it was a fact, she would take it as the truth. Between a husband and wife, one of them always needed to compromise. But now Amy was sure that Engelite had an affair. What she wanted now was for Engelite to confess to her. Stop arguing. Colin's mood became even more unhappy. If you want to argue, then leave my ward. Someone had broken several ribs in his chest. However, he and his friend had already made a promise. This matter must not be made public, because they were the ones at fault. Moreover, the other party seemed to be very rich. He didn't want any trouble, especially if he caused trouble for his family. Being beaten up by others was already depressing enough. Now, she had to listen to her parents arguing in her hospital room. This made him even more frustrated. To Colin, today was definitely the darkest day of his life. He had lost face in front of the girl he liked. Now in the hospital and enduring the parents' quarrel. If you want a divorce, you'd better be straightforward. As soon as he said this, the wind and clouds changed color. You also think we should get a divorce? Amy looked at Colin. That's not what I meant. Colin immediately realized that he had said the wrong thing. Colin. Engelite was like a volcano that was about to erupt. If you're still not awake, then you better shut up. You don't need to get involved in my business with your mother. He felt that he was the one who was wrong the most. He clearly hadn't done anything wrong. But he had to be suspected by Amy. But Amy felt that she was the one who was wrong the most. Why can't Colin say it? He's a part of the family, so he has the right, Amy said. Then are you really going to divorce me? As long as you confess, I'll consider forgiving you. I told you I didn't cheat. Damn it, I didn't cheat. Engelite finally exploded. Amy's face was livid. Seems like you still don't want to confess. Fine, then you can live with that bitch. I wish you happiness. With that, Amy pulled Ceylon away. Where are you going? Engelite hurriedly pulled Amy back. Ceylon and I are going to stay at my parents' for a while, Amy said. Engelite hesitated and finally let go. We both need to calm down. If they continued to argue, it would only cause both sides to lose control of their emotions and worsen the situation. Plus, Amy's parents lived in San Jose, the third largest city in California. Even if they drove, it would only take a few hours. Mom, Dad, don't divorce. Ceylon looked at her parents with tears in her eyes. Amy glanced at her daughter and didn't say anything. She pulled her out of the room. Engelite slumped on the chair in the room. Dad, did you really have an affair? No, I said I didn't. Engelite tried his best to defend himself. But even his son. He was full of suspicion towards him. Not to mention Amy. I didn't do anything wrong to your mother. I'm innocent. Then why did Mom say you had an affair? Colin was already an adult. He had his own knowledge and worldview. He knew how dirty the adult world was. Of course, as a son, he didn't want his parents to divorce. Even if he didn't care, his sister Ceylon was only 10. She might not be able to take this kind of damage. Mom, don't divorce Dad, okay? Ceylon sat in the back of the car and begged her mother. Amy's mind was in a mess as she drove in silence. When they got home, Amy started packing. Then she left with Ceylon. She argued with Engelite the whole day. After a few hours of driving, Amy was both mentally and physically exhausted. Mom, Ceylon and I are almost home. Amy dialed her mother's number. Okay, your father and I prepared a delicious dinner to welcome you and my cute granddaughter. When the car arrived at her mother's house, her mother and father were standing in front of the door. Mom's dad. Amy walked in front of her parents and hugged them affectionately. Where's Ceylon? Why isn't she getting out? Amy's parents asked. She seems to be asleep. Amy opened the back door. Ceylon, you're home. Don't you want to see your grandpa and grandma? But Ceylon was still lying in the back. Ceylon. Amy walked up and patted Ceylon's cheek. Still no reaction. Ceylon. Amy seemed to realize that there was something wrong with her daughter. What's wrong with Ceylon? I can't wake her up. Amy said worriedly. Let me see. Amy's mother walked up and tested the temperature of Ceylon's forehead. It's normal. Amy's mother wasn't too sure. Take Ceylon to the hospital first, Amy's father said. Chapter 1583. How's my daughter? Doctor. The doctor said. She doesn't have any injuries, but she lost control of her emotions and sealed herself off. That's why she's in a coma. Then what can I do to wake her up? Amy's heart was heavy. She suddenly realized that her previous actions were indeed very inappropriate. She didn't care about her daughter's feelings at all. She kept arguing with Engelite in front of her daughter. That was why her daughter lost control of her emotions. Her daughter seemed to be very similar to Engelite. When she was hurt, she wouldn't make a fuss. Instead, she would keep it to herself and stay silent. But she wasn't Engelite. She was still a child. Amy should have noticed it long ago. But she hadn't gone to see Ceylon on the way. Amy blamed herself even more. She needs to wake up on her own, the doctor said. Currently, there's no medical treatment that can wake her up. Is there no way at all? Sorry. The doctor shook his head and turned to leave. Amy's parents were also very worried. Their love for their granddaughter was no less than Amy's. Amy, should we inform Engelite? No. Hearing Engelite, Amy was furious again. That asterisk shoal. It's all because of him that Ceylon got sick. But a moment later, Amy softened again. I'll call him, Amy said with a sigh. After hearing the news, Engelite immediately rushed to San Jose. When he arrived at the hospital, it was already 2 a.m. Amy stared at Engelite with a complicated expression. But neither Engelite nor Amy had the time to quarrel with him. Amy, how's Ceylon? Her situation isn't good. The doctor said that she doesn't have any illnesses, but because of us, she's sealed herself off. Then what can we do? Engelite asked. The doctor can't do anything either, Amy said. Ceylon's like a vegetable now. Engelite's expression grew even more terrible. He wanted to scold Amy, but he swallowed his words in the end. He didn't want their relationship to worsen. Engelite thought of Chen Zhao. Right now, he didn't know what to do either. He could only look for Chen Zhao. I'll make a call. Maybe that person can cure our daughter, Engelite said. You know a doctor? English nodded. A previous client. Before? Have you resigned from the insurance company? Amy, I don't want to talk about it. I admit that I'm hiding something from you, but I can assure you that it's not what you think. I didn't cheat. Even with Engelite's promise, Lin Fan was not a match for Engelite. However, this kind of thing couldn't be proven with just a guarantee. If Engelite couldn't prove it, Amy wouldn't be able to find him. Women are paranoid. Engelite couldn't care less about the time. Walking to the window, she took out her phone and called Chen Zhao. Engelite, tell me what's the matter. I believe you must have something to do to call me at this time. President, something happened to my daughter. She's unconscious in the hospital. I need your help, Engelite said. Give me the address. Chen Zhao stopped complaining about Engelite disturbing him. In San Jose, Moreau Hospital. Okay, got it, Chen Zhao said. I'll go to the airport now. Okay, I'll wait for you at the hospital. After hanging up, Engelite heaved a long sigh of relief. In the association, Chen Zhao gave everyone a reassuring feeling. It wasn't just during battles. Chen Zhao also gave them a sense of security in other aspects. How is it? Did your friend agree? Yes, he's coming from LA now. Elite nodded. Amy was confused. Since when did Elite know such a friend? Judging from his expression, Elite seemed to have relaxed after the call. It seemed that Elite trusted this friend a lot. Although Chen Zhao had left immediately, he only waited for 3 hours at the airport. He couldn't rush to the airport even if he wanted to. He couldn't just fly there. The risk of flying over was too great. With the American military's radar, they could definitely find UFOs. After all, if he flew at high speed, he would generate heat. He couldn't avoid the military radar. Chen Zhao didn't want to be targeted by the military. At 8 in the morning, Chen Zhao finally arrived at Moro Hospital in San Jose. An elite brought Chen Zhao to the ward. Outside the ward, Amy hadn't slept the entire night. Although her face was haggard, she still couldn't sleep. Hello, I'm Angelite's friend, Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao introduced himself. Hello, Mr. Chin. Hello, Mr. Chin. Amy, Mr. Chin is a medical professor at UCLA. He's also a neurologist. He's awakened people in a vegetative state before. An elite added a few buffs to Chen Zhao. As expected, after hearing Angelite's introduction, Amy perked up. Mr. Chin, thank you so much for coming. You're welcome. I'm friends with an elite, Chen Zhao said, smiling. Chen Zhao smiled. Take me to see your child now. Amy and an elite brought Chen Zhao into the ward. When Chen Zhao saw Ceylon lying on the bed, his first thought was that her soul was complete and stable. From the outside, he didn't notice anything wrong with her body. Of course, Chen Zhao had already heard about Cisco's condition from an elite before this. Chen Zhao went up to examine Ceylon. The situation wasn't good, because Chen Zhao didn't find anything wrong with Ceylon after examining her. Amy kept looking at Chen Zhao in disbelief. She wanted to hear good news from Chen Zhao. After the examination, Chen Zhao couldn't wait to ask about Ceylon's condition. Mr. Chen, how's my daughter? It's only a preliminary examination right now, Chen Zhao said. I need to discuss it with my team. Hearing that, Angelite's heart skipped a beat. Chen Zhao didn't have a medical team. Chen Zhao had always been a loner. When can you give me an answer, Mr. Chen? I'll give you an answer today. But the doctors in this hospital only took an hour to give an answer. So they can't wake your daughter up, Chen Zhao said. Amy froze, then she was overjoyed. Mr. Chen, are you saying that you have a way to wake my daughter up? I can only say that it's very likely, but I can't guarantee it. Chapter 1584. Angelite's mood was the complete opposite of Amy's. Chen Zhao clearly didn't tell Amy everything. Chen Zhao gave an elite a look. An elite followed Chen Zhao out. President, how's Ceylon? To be honest, I can't do anything. What? Even you can't do anything? But when I checked just now, I realized that your daughter is more like sleeping than in a vegetative state, Chen Zhao said. As for falling asleep, don't you think there's someone more authoritative than me in the association? Chen Zhao asked. An elite suddenly looked up. Norma? Yes, Norma. Chen Zhao nodded. I'll call her over now. Amy watched Chen Zhao and Angelite's conversation not far away. She'd relaxed slightly because of Chen Zhao's words. But she still couldn't truly calm down. She was always on edge. An elite came over and told her to rest. But Amy still couldn't relax. Chen Zhao stood behind Amy. Ms. Amy. Amy turned her head and Chen Zhao suddenly snapped his fingers. Chen Zhao hadn't used the Banshee's charm in a long time. But as his power increased, the Banshee's charm didn't regress. Instead, it became easier to use. Amy's vision darkened and she collapsed. An elite reacted quickly and caught Amy. Take your wife back to her place to rest. I'll come with Norma. An elite thought for a moment and then nodded. Norma came quickly as well. She arrived 3 hours later. An elite also returned to the hospital. President, Elite, what's the situation now? Norma asked. An elite explained the situation to Norma. Okay, I understand. I'll try to enter Norma's dream and wake her up. However, when the three of them entered the ward, Norma stopped in her tracks. What's wrong? Annelite, your daughter seems to have been invaded by a nightmare. Chen Zhao and Annelite glanced at each other in astonishment. They hadn't discovered Ceylon's true situation. Norma had the bloodline of a shapeshifter, so she immediately realized that something was wrong. What should we do? Chen Zhao asked. Are you confident? I wonder how strong this shapeshifter is. Norma said, President, it's best if you enter her dream with me. I might not be able to defeat her alone. Then take me into the dream, Chen Zhao said. Chen Zhao actually wasn't that confident, because most of his power was in his body. He didn't know how much of his power he could use in the dream. Norma, bring me in too, Annelite said. As a father, he couldn't just stand by and watch. I just learned how to bring people into the dream. It's already very difficult for me to do it alone. I can't do it with two people, Norma said. Angelite's eyes sparkled. He really wanted to say that he would replace Chen Zhao and enter his daughter's dream. But he couldn't bring himself to say it. Norma only brought Chen Zhao in because she wasn't confident. No matter how he looked at it, Chen Zhao was definitely more suitable than him to enter his daughter's dream and save Ceylon. All right then. Annelite finally nodded. What do I need to do? Nothing, Norma said. Just sit down. Don't resist my magic later. Chen Zhao and Norma sat side by side on the chair beside the bed. Norma's magic was already activated. Chen Zhao could feel Norma's magic around him. Chen Zhao suddenly thought of the first time his spirit left his body. At that time, he'd been knocked to the ground by Old Turtle's punch. But compared to Old Turtle's brutal methods, Chen Zhao was much gentler. Norma was much gentler. If Chen Zhao resisted, Norma wouldn't be able to pull his consciousness into the dream at all. Norma's magic could make people enter a dream or dream themselves. It seemed like Norma's magic couldn't be defended against. In fact, with Chen Zhao's senses, Norma's magic couldn't escape Chen Zhao's senses at all. Suddenly, Chen Zhao felt someone tug at his body with great force. When he opened his eyes again, he found himself standing on a wasteland. The sky was gray and hazy, just like the wastelands in movies. There was no sun or moon, no mountains, no plants, and no color. Was this the world of dreams? Where was Norma? Where did she go? Also, which direction should he go? Chen Zhao sat down where he was. According to the probability of events happening, things would definitely happen around him. Since he didn't know where to go, he might as well wait here. Chen Zhao pinched his face. He felt something. But when he tried to punch the ground, his power disappeared. Chen Zhao fell into deep thought. What he'd entered definitely wasn't his real body. But he still felt something. This feeling was different from the spirit leaving the body. At least, the spirit didn't have a physical body. But in the dream, it actually had a physical body. Chen Zhao couldn't help but think more. Taoists felt that there was actually a universe hidden in the human body. That was the sea of consciousness. Was the sea of consciousness the dream world? If the dream world and the real world were actually a complete world, a complete universe, then did it also have a complete set of rules? Chen Zhao suddenly thought of this question. If it was a universe with complete rules, then his power should be able to be used here too. Suddenly, Chen Zhao realized that his dark magma extended out from under his feet. The small world started spreading out too. At the same time, Chen Zhao's power started flowing in his body. Chen Zhao looked at his hands in shock. Could it really be done? Was it because he understood the rules so he could take back his power? Or was it just because he thought about it? If he could have power just by thinking about it, then could he also have godlike power if he wanted it? Chen Zhao tried again, but there was no change this time. Was it because he didn't understand a stronger power? The realm was there, so his power was naturally there too. No matter which world he was in, he couldn't really have godlike power as he wished. So, whether it was Norma or the other Nightmare Lord, they also couldn't have more power than they originally had. Chen Zhao suddenly raised his head and looked at the sky. It formed a dark cloud in the sky. The cloud covered a few square kilometers. Chen Zhao finally confirmed that this wasn't his real power. It was the power generated by his consciousness. Chapter 1585. This was because the demonic domain, Darkness Descends, had actually formed here. This was the Darkness Descends that Qin Zhao had never truly possessed. But in this dream world, Darkness Descends had actually appeared. So Qin Zhao was very sure that this wasn't his original power. It was the power that the dream world had given him. It was like a normal person entering the dream world. Then this person would only have the power of a normal person. If he was an athlete, perhaps he would have more power, but it wouldn't exceed the limits of humans. But if he was a powerful being like Qin Zhao, first, he would know how to use his power. On the other hand, Qin Zhao fell into deep thought. The real world and the dream world could be imagined as two different countries, A and B. Qin Zhao had been a scientist in country A before going to country B. A scientist's knowledge wouldn't lose its value just because he went to another country. Of course, this analogy was also very similar to Qin Zhao's life experience. When Qin Zhao had first come to America, he hadn't brought anything other than his medical skills. He'd relied on his medical skills to gain a foothold. From this, it could be understood that the dream world was a world with complete rules. It wasn't empty. At least in terms of rules, the dream world and the real world had the same, or rather, close. However, this world didn't have spiritual qi. Qin Zhao frowned. This meant that he would use up as much power as he used. This made Qin Zhao even more careful. He had the same power as in the real world, or even more. But he couldn't last as long as in the real world. An idea suddenly popped up in Qin Zhao's mind. Everyone had a dream world, or rather, a sea of consciousness. The sea of consciousness was hidden in one's consciousness. This meant that his sea of consciousness had actually followed him here. So if his sea of consciousness had spiritual qi, could he use it to replenish his immortal power? Qin Zhao suddenly thought that perhaps the next step of his cultivation was to open his sea of consciousness. Just then, Qin Zhao felt movement in front of him. He immediately got up and went in that direction. He charged forward at full speed. But he didn't fly. Instead, he ran. Flying would greatly consume his immortal power. If he ran, it would consume less. But running on the ground wasn't much slower than flying in the sky. In the distance, Qin Zhao saw a giant. More accurately, it was a giant girl. That giant girl was Seelan? No, it should be Seelan's subconscious. She sat on the ground, hugging her legs and burying her head between them. Her body was as tall as a mountain. A two-headed serpent that was burning with flames was coiled around her left calf. One of the two-headed snake's head was biting Seelan's calf, while the other head was fighting with a horse burning with green flames in midair. The horse burning with green flames was Norma's consciousness incarnation, Nightmare. The twin-headed snake that was burning with flames should also be a shapeshifter. Without thinking, Qin Zhao charged forward and grabbed the two-headed snake's tail. He directly pulled the two-headed snake down. Be it the two-headed snake or Norma, they were both shocked. When Norma saw Qin Zhao, she was confused but felt that it was only natural. However, the two-headed snake was completely dumbfounded. Although he was surprised by Norma's appearance, he wasn't surprised. After all, Norma was also a nightmare and could enter a person's deep consciousness. But Qin Zhao was clearly not a nightmare. Not only did he come in, but he also displayed unbelievable power. The two-headed snake was huge, but it was nothing compared to Qin Zhao's strength. However, the two-headed snake still managed to tear off a piece of flesh from Seelan's thigh. Its body grew larger. Qin Zhao grabbed the two-headed snake's tail and smashed it on the ground like a whip. After going back and forth a few times, the two heads of the two-headed snake were dispirited. Norma, who had transformed into a shapeshifter, swooped down and bit the two-headed snake's abdomen, tearing off a piece of flesh. Norma was usually quiet and gentle in the association. However, after transforming into a nightmare, her fighting style became abnormally violent and savage. After Norma devoured a piece of the two-headed serpent's flesh. As time went by, Norma's body grew a little bigger, while the two-headed snake became a little smaller. The two-headed snake suddenly turned around and bit at Qin Zhao. "President, be careful. Don't let him bite you." Norma was in shapeshifter form, but her voice was still her original voice. Actually, even without Norma's reminder, Chen Zhao wouldn't let the two-headed snake bite him. After all, this wasn't his home ground. Plus, Chen Zhao didn't know what special abilities shapeshifters had here. Chen Zhao grabbed the two-headed snake's tail and spun it around a dozen times. Then he smashed it onto the ground. The two-headed snake tried to bite Chen Zhao a few times, but he shook it off. Chen Zhao wouldn't give it a chance to bite Big Quinn himself. Norma always took the opportunity to bite off a piece of the two-headed snake's flesh. Chen Zhao also had the urge to bite off a piece of the two-headed snake's flesh. Try it? The thought popped up in Chen Zhao's mind. Chen Zhao had always been a bold person. Of course, it could also be said that he didn't know his limits. Chen Zhao bit the two-headed snake's spine and tore off a piece of flesh. Next, Chen Zhao's body shook. Instantly, Chen Zhao saw a pair of eyes from the depths of his soul. The feeling was too special. It wasn't from the outside world, but from himself. Chen Zhao bit off another piece of the two-headed snake's flesh. But this time, the image that flashed by didn't appear again. Chen Zhao was a bit disappointed. The feeling was too special. But now wasn't the time to think about that. Chen Zhao had to get rid of the two-headed snake first. Just then, chains burning with green flames shot out of Norma's shapeshifter body. The chains were like a part of Norma's body. They nimbly wrapped around the two-headed snake. Chen Zhao had seen Norma use this move before. She'd used it against evil spirits and demons. The two-headed snake was tightly bound by Norma's chains. No matter how it struggled, it couldn't break free. It also couldn't resist Norma's pull. The chains started sinking into the two-headed snake's flesh. Every time the two-headed snake struggled, the chains would only bind it tighter. Chen Zhao didn't need to finish the last part. Norma could already do it. And she needed it more. The weaker the two-headed snake was, the stronger Norma was. Please remember this book's domain name, 9 Heavens Godly Emperor Mobile Version. Chapter 1586. The battle ended. Under Chen Zhao and Norma's pincer attack, the two-headed snake was finally completely devoured by Norma. Norma shook and returned to her human form. President, why do you have real power in someone else's consciousness? Norma asked, confused. Can't you? Chen Zhao asked. I think I can do it, so I recovered my real power. It doesn't seem too hard in this consciousness. What? This is someone else's consciousness. How can you do it? Norma's face was filled with disbelief. Even us nightmares can't do it. Nightmares can't do it? Chen Zhao was stunned. He'd thought that it was just a small trick. Even a beginner like him could do it. Nightmares, who often entered other people's dreams, should be able to do it. But hearing Norma's words, Chen Zhao couldn't help but be confused. Whatever he couldn't understand. Let's not think about it. Chen Zhao shook his head. Norma, do you nightmares always fight in consciousness so monotonous? Actually, if two nightmares fight in someone else's consciousness, they basically see who can control the main consciousness first. Norma pointed at Ceylon's consciousness. However, a powerful shapeshifter can almost instantly devour this young lady's consciousness and control the entire world of consciousness. When that happens, he will be invincible here. However, the shapeshifter that attacked this young lady this time is only slightly stronger than me. Moreover, he has already become very weak after entering the human's world of consciousness through the crack. Hearing Norma's words, Chen Zhao fell into deep thought. His current power didn't come from this consciousness. But he did have this power. So where did it come from? Was it from his consciousness? In other words, his consciousness was transferring power to him. If he thought about it this way, in other words, he wasn't completely connected to his consciousness. Norma, can you take me into my own consciousness? I can't. I can only bring others into your consciousness, and you have to let go of your own accord, Norma said. I can't bring myself into my consciousness. Okay. Chen Zhao was a bit disappointed. Oh, after dealing with that nightmare, Angelite's daughter should be safe now, right? President, don't you think we need to talk to this girl? Norma pointed at Ceylon's main consciousness. From beginning to end, Ceylon had been hugging her legs, as if she had fallen asleep. Even the two-headed snake's attack did not have any effect on it. Enlighten her? Chen Zhao looked at Ceylon's consciousness and then at Norma. I'm not good at this at all. I'll leave it to you. Norma was also a little confused. She did not understand the ways of the world at all. Her EQ was not necessarily higher than that of an underage girl. She was originally blind, and the only people she interacted with since she was young were the mediocre people in her family and her uncle, Louis Clallam. Later, he became a member of the supernatural organization. How would she know how to enlighten others? Guild leader, I don't know what to do. It's fine, Chen Zhao said shamelessly. You can try. Persuading children was the most troublesome. Norma had no choice but to walk towards Ceylon's main consciousness. Hello, Ceylon. When the nurse entered the ward, she found two strangers in the ward. The nurse was puzzled. Were these two people the child's relatives? Why were they asleep here? Also, why was the patient's father standing at the side with an anxious expression? Just then Chen Zhao and Norma, who were sitting on the chair, suddenly woke up. At the same time, Ceylon also opened her eyes on the bed. Dad. Ceylon made a soft sound. Engelite immediately rushed to the bed in surprise. Dad, where is this? Ceylon could not remember what had happened. Chen Zhao and Norma stood up and walked to the bed. Who are you? Are you my friends? They're my friends. Engelite looked at Chen Zhao and Norma, his eyes filled with gratitude. Chen Zhao and Norma also heaved a sigh of relief. Then the doctor came and examined Ceylon. Engelite sent Chen Zhao and Norma to the entrance of the hospital. Guild leader, Norma, thank you for your help. If not for you, I don't know what I would have done. Okay, Engelite, Chen Zhao said. Spend some time with your wife and child. Take care of things at home first. There was nothing big in the organization anyway, so Engelite had to go. So, Chen Zhao gave Engelite a long leave. As for the potion for your arm, I'll make it as soon as possible. Okay, guild leader. Then I won't send you and Norma off. That day, Chen Zhao and Norma flew back to Los Angeles. Chen Zhao cared a lot about what he sensed in his consciousness. Now, he was like a blind man crossing a river. He could only explore by himself. After his magic power turned into immortal power, he could only explore by himself. Although his power had increased by leaps and bounds, problems came with it. In the past, every time Chen Zhao improved, it was the growth of the system. There were precedents to follow, and Old Turtle could help too. But now, even Old Turtle could not help. In fact, Old Turtle was also in seclusion. Old Turtle said that he would enter the river map in 100 years to find him. That was a little more than a month in the real world. There were many things that Chen Zhao had to explore and explore by himself. There was also another point about what the elves had said. They were naturally close to the elements. Natural elements were actually spiritual energy in the world. Like magic power or spiritual power, they were different names in the East and West. Elves did not have magic power, but they could use their closeness to the elements. Thus, they could directly control the power of the elements. They could achieve an effect similar to elemental magic or natural magic. From a Taoist perspective, this was the state of being one with the world. Of course, elves were definitely not that strong. At least, they were not stronger than spiritualists. Chen Zhao cared more about the principle of their closeness to the elements. Dad, how's Ceylon? Much better, Engelite said. I'll go to San Jose to see her, Colon said. He and Ceylon were very close and Ceylon was also very close to him. When he heard that Ceylon was in a coma and hospitalized, he was also very worried. Can you move? I'm fine, Colon said. Actually, he still hurt all over. After all, a few of his ribs had been broken. He could not recover so quickly. Please remember this book's domain name, 9 Heavens Divine Emperor Mobile Version. Chapter 1587. After the doctor's diagnosis, Ceylon was discharged. The doctor didn't understand why Ceylon had suddenly woken up. When Amy woke up and realized that Ceylon had recovered, her face was filled with disbelief. But then she thought of Chen Zhao, whom Engelite had found. She thought that Chen Zhao might have cured her daughter. That day, Colin also came with his injured body. But what annoyed Elite was that Amy still hadn't forgiven him. But neither Elite nor Amy quarreled in front of Ceylon. Amy, when are you going back to LA? Elite asked. Go back yourself, Amy said indifferently. I haven't decided yet. How can you be like this? Elite said angrily. I don't want to quarrel with you now. Amy's tone was still cold. Elite was about to go crazy. Elite didn't want to stay in San Jose, nor did he want to stay at his father-in-law's house. His father-in-law and mother-in-law all looked at him unkindly. They completely treated him like an outsider. No matter how he explained, his father-in-law and mother-in-law didn't believe him. After thinking for a long time, Elite called Colin to his side. Con, stay at your grandparents' house and try to persuade your mother to go back. Dad? Where are you going? Where can I go? I'm going to stay in a hotel for a few days. Your grandparents don't welcome me at all. Elite was helpless too. He could only pin his hopes on his son. After all, his son was older and more reasonable. Dad, did you have an affair? I told you I didn't. No. Elite was about to lose control. But calm down. I'll persuade Mom to go home. Colin was worried that if he continued, his father would really go crazy. I'll stay here for a while, Elite said. Call me anytime if anything happens. Got it. Elite didn't return to LA, mainly because he was worried that if his daughter asked about him, he would be able to appear before her immediately. Without Elite, the family was happy and harmonious. Amy's parents were very happy about the arrival of their grandson and granddaughter. They prepared a sumptuous dinner for Amy's family. No one mentioned Elite, the loner. Whoosh, Colin woke up from his sleep. He realized that his whole body was covered in sweat, and his pajamas were soaked in water. Colin gasped for air and touched his chest. The pain seemed to have lessened a lot compared to during the day. Colin got up and went to the living room to get a glass of water. When he passed by Sealand's room, he suddenly heard noises coming from inside. Colin carefully pushed open Sealand's door. Suddenly, Colin saw someone standing in front of Sealand's bed. This person was definitely not anyone in the family. What are you doing? Corin shouted. The man's body didn't move, but his neck turned 360 degrees. Colin saw the twisted, bloody face. In that instant, all the hairs on Colin's body stood up. The figure charged towards Colin. Don't come over. Colin was so frightened that his hands and feet flailed wildly. A gust of cold wind blew past, but there was nothing. Just then, the lights in Grandpa, Grandma, and Amy's bedroom all lit up. The three of them came out of their respective bedrooms. Colin, what are you screaming about in the middle of the night? Colin opened his eyes again, and was stunned to see his mother and Grandpa and Grandma standing in front of him. And Ceylon also got up from the bed in a daze. Brother, what happened? Was it an illusion? Colin's heart was full of doubts. Are you bored, yelling in Ceylon's room in the middle of the night? Amy scolded. But Colin also didn't know how to explain. Go back to your room and sleep. How old are you already, still playing pranks? Colin could only go back to his room dejectedly. After turning off the lights, Colin still couldn't calm down. Was it really an illusion just now? Or did he really see something unclean? Colin couldn't be sure. Colin picked up the rubber ball on the table and threw it at the wall. The moment the rubber ball bounced back, Colin suddenly saw the rubber ball slow down in midair. It was like a slow-motion scene in a movie. Colin's face was filled with doubt. What was going on? Colin raised his hand and grabbed the rubber ball lightly. Then he threw it with more force. This time, the rubber ball slowed down even more. Colin's face was full of confusion. Colin tried again. The moment the rubber ball was thrown, Colin moved his feet and appeared on the other side of the rubber ball. Colin easily caught the rubber ball in his hand. At this time, Colin finally realized the changes in himself. He seemed to have become very fast, very, very fast. Colin looked out of the house in the dark night and threw the rubber ball outside. Then Colin turned into a whirlwind and dashed out. When Colin found his body stirring, he could not move. He seemed to be able to escape the shackles of gravity. He could even run on roofs and run on walls. Colin easily ran a few hundred meters and caught the rubber ball easily. Colin's face was full of surprise. This change was too amazing. But running a few hundred meters like this was really tiring. Colin's stamina had always been good, and running a kilometer or two was definitely not a problem. But now, after just a few hundred meters, he actually felt very tired. Why did his body change like this? Colin couldn't figure it out no matter how much he thought about it. Colin started to test his speed in front of his grandparents' house. He found that his speed was even faster than the world's top sprinters. But he couldn't last long, and every time he finished running, he would use up a lot of stamina. After running for 2 or 3 hours, Colin finally returned to the house. "Colin, why aren't you up? It's already noon." Amy, who couldn't bear it anymore, pulled the covers off Colin and pulled him out of bed. Colin's face was full of fatigue. He had used up too much stamina last night, so much so that his body was still extremely sore. "Mom, let me sleep a bit more. I'm so sleepy." "Who told you to play a prank in the middle of the night?" Amy scolded. "Get up, your grandparents prepared lunch for you. Go wash up now." Colin got up helplessly, looking like he had just woken up. He didn't feel energetic after washing up. His body was still sore. It didn't feel good at all. When he came to the table, he heard Ceylon call out softly, "Ouch!" Colin saw Ceylon's glass of juice fall from her hand. Colin's hands were sharp. He moved quickly and caught the glass gently. Chapter 1588. "Brother, you're amazing." The others didn't see it clearly, but Ceylon did. But she was still young, so she only thought her brother was amazing. She didn't think too much about it. Colin's actions just now weren't normal at all. He didn't just catch the cup that fell. In an instant he covered a distance of 10 meters. Colin sighed in relief. He didn't dare to tell his family about the strange changes in his body yet. Sitting at the dining table, Colin started to wolf down his food. Everyone looked at Colin in surprise. I didn't think Colin would like my food so much." Colin's grandmother said proudly. For an elder, the proudest thing was that their food could satisfy the younger generation. Colin also found out that his appetite had become extremely large. For lunch, he ate enough for 4 people. Even his family was worried for him. Colin knew that it was because of the changes in his body. "Mom, Grandpa, Grandma, I'm going out for a walk." Colin wanted to test how much his body had changed. Colin found a secluded area, a hilly area overgrown with weeds. Colin held the stopwatch. The moment he pressed it, he rushed to the top of the mountain. However, after running for a few hundred meters, Colin stopped. His body couldn't take it anymore, but it only took him 3 seconds to cover 300 meters. Did he exchange his speed for endurance? Colin felt that his body had become stronger. But it wasn't as much as his speed. He couldn't keep up with his endurance. But after a short recovery, Colin found that his stamina had returned. Seems like his recovery rate was much better than before. It wasn't until the evening when Amy called him that Colin went home for dinner. After dinner, Ceylon suddenly found Colin. "Brother, come here for a second." "Darling, what's wrong?" Colin came to his sister. "Brother, can you sleep with me tonight?" Ceylon's eyes flashed as she looked at Colin. "You're already so big, you should learn to sleep by yourself." Colin rubbed Ceylon's head. But, Ceylon hesitated. "But what?" "I'm scared. Last night, I think I saw someone standing in front of my bed, with a bloody face." A trace of fear appeared on Ceylon's face. "Then I heard your scream. When I opened my eyes again, you were gone." Colin's heart skipped a beat. Was he imagining things? Was that just a misconception on his part? Ceylon saw it too? "All right, I'll accompany you tonight." Colin was still worried about his sister. However, Colin's heart was a little uneasy. He had a nagging feeling that something bad was about to happen. "Karan, are you sleeping with Ceylon tonight?" Amy didn't expect Colin to make such a request. After all, Ceylon was already 10 years old. American parents would usually give their children a separate room when they were 2 or 3 years old. "Ceylon doesn't look too stable, I'll keep an eye on her," Colin said. He also could not tell his mother that he and Ceylon had seen a ghost. Alright, you're her brother. You can look after her. Amy nodded. Colin and Ceylon were in the same room. Because it was still early, neither of them felt sleepy. Ceylon was playing a game, while Colin was holding a rubber ball, practicing throwing and catching it. Suddenly, the lights in the room flickered. Both Ceylon and Colin paused. Something's coming? Then Colin saw a face appear on the wall. Whether it was Ceylon or Colin, they both saw that face. Ah! Ceylon screamed. Colin was also extremely shocked. But he still plucked up his courage and threw the rubber ball at the face. The face on the wall immediately retracted. Colin held Ceylon's hand and walked out. But when they reached the living room, they found Amy, Grandpa and Grandma lying unconscious on the floor. Oh no! Colin finally realized the seriousness of the problem. This place was haunted. It really was haunted. The lights in the whole house flickered. Ceylon was already hiding in Colin's arms, not daring to look up. Colin was also a little lost. Take Ceylon out first? Then come back and take the family out of the house? That was the only way. Colin carried Ceylon and rushed out. He only stopped when he was 100 meters away from the house. At this time, Colin was already exhausted. Looking back, he saw a dozen white shadows in the sky following them. Colin's face changed slightly. These things weren't originally from the house. Were they following Ceylon or himself? Colin didn't care about his fatigue. He carried Ceylon and ran again. Colin didn't know where to take Ceylon. He could only run around aimlessly. But when the two went to a busy street, those things didn't follow them anymore. At this time, Colin was already exhausted. Colin thought about it. What should he do now? Take Ceylon home? Would it hurt his mother and Grandpa and Grandma? This was something he had to think about. Find his father? His father might be hurt too. Right? At least let his father find a place for them to stay. Colin was really too tired now. He really didn't have the energy to take Ceylon running around. After Colin made his decision, he took out his phone and dialed Angelite's number. Dad, Ceylon and I are on the street. On the street? Did you come out to play? Dad, we're not playing outside. Can you help us get a room in a hotel? You ran away from home. And no, it's a bit complicated. Colin stuttered. Tell me what happened. Angelite asked. Don't ask. Where are you now? I'll come get you. Not long later, Angelite arrived. He saw his son and daughter sitting on a bench on the street. His daughter was still in her pajamas. Colin was barefoot. Colin, what's going on? Dad, Colin hesitated for a long time. He still couldn't tell the truth. What's going on? We might have met. Suddenly, Angelite flung a dagger at Colin without any warning. Colin hugged his head in fright. But the next moment, he realized that Angelite's dagger wasn't aimed at him. Colin turned around and saw that Angelite's dagger had stabbed an evil spirit. The evil spirit screamed and turned to dust. That... Colin's mouth was wide open. He looked at his father in shock. Chapter 1589. Colin suddenly realized that he didn't recognize his father anymore. So unfamiliar, so mysterious. Are you really my dad? Angelite angrily stepped forward and slapped the back of Colin's head. What are you talking about? Of course I'm your father. Angelite said with a dark face. You can see those things? Both Ceylon and I can see them. Angelite's heart skipped a beat. When did you see it? Last night. Last night. Colin said, I saw something. It was that thing standing in front of Ceylon's bed. It was Ceylon? Angelite's face was uncertain. Today is the second night. Tell me the details. Colin told him everything that had happened yesterday and today in detail. Then Colin asked, Father, what is going on? It has nothing to do with you. Leave Ceylon with me and go home immediately. Put your mom, Grandpa and Grandma on the bed and pretend nothing happened. Angelite said, Dad, this matter is not because of you, but because of Ceylon. Wherever Ceylon is, there will be problems. You can't solve this matter. Dad, you're not a normal person, are you? Colin asked. Angelite's eyes flashed. After a while, he finally made up his mind. Since you've already awakened, there's no need for me to hide it from you. You and I are the same, we're both spiritualists. We have different bloodlines from normal people. You've also noticed your extraordinary speed. Dad, do you have the same speed? I'm much faster than you, and I can run for hours without getting tired. Angelit said. But you have better stamina than me? That's impossible, you're already 40 years old. Not only am I stronger than you, my magic is also stronger. Angelit said, and I have special magic, so I know how to use my stamina and magic better. Colin really didn't think his family had such a shocking secret. Dad, what about Ceylon? What's with her? She can be considered to be of the same kind as us, but she's also different. Angelit said, she has awakened her witch talent, and you just said that the evil spirits didn't attack her last night. Today, the evil spirits just pestered her and didn't attack her, which means that her witch talent is unique. She is a very powerful witch who awakened on the third night. Angelit slapped his head. I should have known that Ceylon fainted last time because she went through a death calamity. What is a dead end? The awakening of a witch is different from that of a male spiritualist. We have a special bloodline, so our awakening is also awakening the power of our bloodline. We can't learn most magic, and only magic that is highly compatible with our bloodline can be learned. But witches are different. What they awaken is magic. Angelit said, and before a witch awakens, she will encounter a life and death calamity. First is the death calamity, which is very complicated. In short, she will encounter the threat of death, and after passing the death calamity, she will encounter the life calamity, which is the attack of evil spirits. Ordinary witches will be attacked on the first night, powerful witches will be attacked on the second night, and like Ceylon, she will only be attacked tomorrow night. Witches who awaken on the first night, second night, and third night will be attacked more and more. Dad? You mean, Ceylon will be attacked by a very strong evil spirit tomorrow night? Angelit nodded. Yes, very scary, I need help, I can't handle it alone. Dad, I can also help you. You? Forget it, you can't do it, you're too weak. Angelit shook his head. The third night is a very scary night. Normal spiritualists can't participate. No, I'm Ceylon's brother, I can't just stand by and watch. I said no means no. Angelit said firmly. What a joke, he had seen how scary the third night was. Back then he was much stronger than Kellen, but he was also in danger on the third night. Not to mention the current rookie Kellen. I don't agree, I can't just stand by and watch Ceylon be in danger. Ceylon won't be in danger, I can find very strong helpers. Angelit said. Dad, are there a lot of people like us in this world? Not many. Angelit said indifferently, okay, go home. Kellen was obviously not willing to leave. Dad, teach me magic, I don't know how to use my abilities, I don't want to be like today. We'll talk about it later. No matter what, Angelit did not want his son to get involved. Kellen was still not discouraged. He stubbornly stood where he was. Angelit glanced at Kellen and took out his phone. President, it's me. What? Is your daughter unconscious again? No, Angelit said. But my daughter's magic awakened. I need help on the third night. Okay, I understand. You're still in San Jose, right? President, call a few more people over, Angelit said. My son wants to participate too, so send someone to watch him. Can't you just watch him? Leave the rest to me. How can I do that? She's my daughter, I can't just stand by and watch. Angelit was a typical case of letting the officials do whatever they wanted, but not the people. Hearing this, Kellen was furious. His father had actually sent someone to watch him. How could he tolerate this? Kellen stared at Angelit, gritting his teeth. Will you be fine tonight? Qinzhao asked. Yes, it's just a few evil spirits. It's not a big problem. Then I'll bring someone to San Jose tomorrow, Qinzhao said. Since it was the third night, there was no rush. Anyway, the third night would only happen at night. Although the birth of his daughter, little Larissa, had been very abnormal, it was still a miracle. However, he believed that Angelite's daughter's third night wouldn't be that abnormal. No problem. An elite was not in a hurry either. There was still plenty of time before the real night of awakening. With Chen Zhao here, the safety of this matter was guaranteed. Also, Chen Zhao would bring people from the association, so it would be even safer. Actually, Chen Zhao alone was enough. But bringing more people was to ensure that someone could protect Ceylon if Chen Zhao could not take care of her. Chapter 1590. An elite was at the airport. He watched as a large group of people walked out of the arrival gate. Angelite's expression froze. An elite stepped forward. My friends, are you going to start a war? Apart from the outer members and the evil spirit group, everyone who could come was here. Including Adus, an elite didn't doubt that these people could really start a war. It's been a long time since we've had a mission that requires us to work together, West said. The president only wanted to bring a few people, but I suggested that everyone who wanted to come. Where's the president? An elite realized that Chen Zhao hadn't come out of the arrival gate. He shouldn't be absent. Although the people before him were completely capable of dealing with Third Night, Chen Zhao was the stabilizing force of the supernatural organization. Chen Zhao's presence and absence were two completely different feelings. The president's brewery seems to have some business. He'll only come in the afternoon. Then I'll send you to the hotel first. Mr. Chen, the food supplier increased the price of Kansas dangle wheat by 3 times, Denver said angrily. They used us to become famous, but now they're blackmailing us. Chen Zhao frowned. This wasn't a good sign. He didn't like being blackmailed. Kansas dangle wheat was a high-quality wheat among the many grain-producing areas in America. This was also why he'd chosen Kansas dangle wheat. But this definitely wasn't a reason for blackmail. The food suppliers seemed to think that Mountain Beer had to use Kansas dangle wheat. Change the raw materials, Chen Zhao said without thinking. Denver looked at Chen Zhao. He didn't expect Chen Zhao to be so decisive. However, Denver had his own concerns. Mountain Beer's situation was great at the moment. The taste of Mountain Beer had won a lot of praise. If they changed the raw materials now, would it affect the taste or even the sales? The food supplier had indeed increased the price of Kansas dangle wheat by 3 times. However, this price was still within the acceptable range. After all, Mountain Beer's net profit was very high. As one of the raw materials, Kansas dangle wheat took up about 10% of the cost. Mr. Chen, will it affect the taste? Chen Zhao sneered. I won't. Just change the ingredients. Oh, make an announcement that there's a problem with the original ingredients, so Mountain Beer will be changing them. Chen Zhao always took his revenge without delay. The food supplier took advantage of Dashan Beer's misfortune. Of course, Chen Zhao wouldn't take it lying down. If the Kansas dangle wheat was irreplaceable, in that case, Chen Zhao could only grit his teeth and swallow it. But now Chen Zhao had the initiative. The other party actually made such an unreasonable request. In that case, he had to be prepared for Dashan Beer's counterattack. As for how many people Chen Zhao's announcement would screw over, it had nothing to do with him. Right now, Chen Zhao was truly a capitalist. The first requirement for a capitalist was to be ruthless. As for the farmers in Dangle, Kansas, they could only blame it on the seller. Of course, they were not completely free of responsibility. The farmers might have their own ideas about the price increase this time. Think about it, the price of the grain supplier will increase by 3 times. If it weren't for the lower-level individual farmers raising prices, would the grain suppliers have raised prices by so much? Originally, the raw ingredients took up 10% of the cost. Now that the price was tripled, it would take up 30% of the cost. How much would that reduce Chen Zhao's profit margin? No one would be willing to accept such an outcome. So, Chen Zhao's idea was to take revenge on them first. This was to prevent such a thing from happening again. He would see if there were any other raw material suppliers who dared to raise prices. I know what to do. Denver nodded. Chen Zhao almost never interfered with the management of the brewery. This was something that Denver accepted and respected. So, Chen Zhao would occasionally mention it, and Denver was happy to listen to Chen Zhao's suggestions. Denver, I'm leaving now. I'll probably go out in the next 2 days. If you have any other questions, Call me or find Alex. Alex was now Mountain Beer's highly paid legal consultant. Meanwhile, Alex was still recruiting a legal team. As Mountain Beer's brand value grew, more and more interests were involved. There would be more and more places that needed legal help. For example, if a consumer had a stomachache after drinking Mountain Beer, they would need the legal department to find out if the stomachache was caused by the beer. For example, if Mountain Beer wanted to enter a certain city's sales channel, they would need the legal department because the local government's policies affected Mountain Beer's interests. Chen Zhao installed 2 more production lines in the factory. When they had enough raw ingredients, they could expand production. In the future, they would be able to supply the market with enough raw ingredients. After leaving the brewery, Chen Zhao hurried to the airport. He landed in San Jose at 1 in the afternoon. Chen Zhao called Elite and told him that he'd be there before 7. Since it was still early, Chen Zhao planned to stroll around San Jose. He mainly wanted to see the world-famous Silicon Valley. At first, Silicon Valley wasn't big. It was located in the south of the San Francisco Bay Area. But as it grew, Silicon Valley began to expand outwards. To the north of San Jose, there was a valley about 25 miles wide that was also part of Silicon Valley. Basically, the most famous internet and technology companies in the world were gathered here. Chen Zhao didn't have the mentality of a pilgrimage. He just wanted to see. Chen Zhao rented a car at the airport and started roaming around Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley's GDP accounted for about 5% of America's annual GDP. All the companies in Silicon Valley combined were worth more than $4 trillion. Apple alone was worth $1.2 trillion, making it the most valuable company in the world. Colin was running on the beach road at the moment. Elite had said that as long as he could run from the San Francisco Bay Area Beach Highway to downtown San Jose, a distance of 30 kilometers, then he would qualify for the 3rd night. Of course, that was if he could make it in time. Colin was very competitive, so he immediately took a car to the San Francisco Bay Area. Then he really ran back with his legs. Elite taught him some ways to control his stamina. Colin felt that he had improved a lot. Halfway there, Colin suddenly saw a man that left a deep impression on him. That man had brought him unforgettable humiliation. Especially when he'd been humiliated in front of the girl he liked. Colin watched Chen Zhao slowly drive his sports car on the beach road. The anger in his eyes was about to burst out. Chapter 1591. Chen Zhao could already feel that someone was following him. He could also see the person's face in the rearview mirror. Even though it had been a few days, Chen Zhao still had a deep impression of Colin. He just didn't expect to meet him here. Chen Zhao purposely slowed down to see what the guy was planning. He finally chose a road without surveillance cameras and stopped the car. Colin watched in surprise as Chen Zhao alighted from the car. Then he realized that Chen Zhao was looking at him with a faint smile. Had Chen Zhao discovered him long ago? Since he'd discovered him, he still dared to stop the car? Well, he still thought that Chen Zhao was his old self. Colin didn't try to hide anymore. He walked up to Chen Zhao with large strides. I didn't expect to meet you here. Colin glared at Chen Zhao. He was already planning how to teach Chen Zhao a lesson. Your injuries healed pretty fast. Chen Zhao tilted his head and looked at Colin. Chen Zhao was reminding him not to look for trouble. It was enough to teach a young man like him a lesson once. But if Colin insisted on getting close, Chen Zhao wouldn't go easy on him. You still remember that? Colin stared at Chen Zhao, his face filled with anger. Colin cracked his knuckles. Kid, stop fooling around. You can't beat me. Chen Zhao's disdainful attitude made Colin even more furious. I'm not my old self anymore. Let me think. The old you was 3 days ago? No, 4 days ago, right? Are you any different from 4 days ago? Colin looked at Chen Zhao's nonchalant gaze and a proud smile appeared on his face. You'll know soon. Colin suddenly punched Chen Zhao's stomach. But Chen Zhao caught Colin's fist. Chen Zhao and Colin stared at each other. Are you any different from 4 days ago? Colin was dumbfounded too. Was it because of his current condition? Yes, it was definitely because of his condition. Chen Zhao didn't hold back. He punched Colin's stomach. Whoa, Colin clutched his stomach and curled up on the ground. Chen Zhao squatted down before Colin and patted his cheek. Kid, I didn't break your ribs this time. You should feel lucky. Chen Zhao didn't kill him. However, the strength of this punch was enough to make Kellen bedridden for 2 days. If you're not convinced, you're welcome to come find me next time. You know where I live, Chen Zhao said, smiling. I will get my revenge. I will definitely find you. Colin endured the intense pain and shouted, unwilling to give up. Anytime. Colin struggled to get up, but fell back to the ground after just 1 step. That damned bastard, he was too heavy-handed. Colin pulled open his shirt and saw that his abdomen was completely black. I can't participate tonight. Karan endured the pain and called Engelit. He also wanted to go. He also wanted to put in some effort to protect his sister. But putting aside his ability, he would only be a burden in his current state. Moreover, he really didn't want his father to know. If he went to find his enemy for revenge, he would be humiliated by his enemy instead. This kind of thing was too embarrassing. Hearing that his son had retreated, Engelit was somewhat relieved. But he was more confused. He knew his son's temperament too well. He had completely inherited his wife's personality. They were both so stubborn. Why would he suddenly give up? After hanging up, Engelit was still a bit worried. Come here. Engelit, what are you doing? Ever since Moore had caused Engelit to lose an arm because of his mistake. He also heard that Engelit almost caused a family revolt because of him. Moore's guilt toward Engelit had reached its peak. Do me a favor and I'll let this go. Tell me, Moore said, patting his chest. Even if you want me to slay a dragon, I won't even frown. Engelit rolled his eyes. Even if you wanted to slay a dragon, there had to be a dragon for you to slay. Plus, can you even slay a dragon, Gaia? Fine, I don't need you to slay a dragon, Engelit said. Just do one simple thing. Go to my wife's house and watch over my son. What's wrong with your son? Are you father and son not on good terms? Is there a grudge between the two of you? Did you mistreat him when he was young and then he took revenge on you when he grew up? Moore was already imagining all kinds of weird stories and pictures in his head. A melodramatic script of a father and son killing each other. You're thinking too much. My son just awakened his bloodline. I'm afraid he'll do something stupid. But I'm more needed here. Moore really didn't want to be a nanny. It was more interesting to stay here and fight. The president is already in San Jose. What's the difference if you're here or not? Also, if the president attacks, do you think you'll have a chance? The president isn't that bored. There's no need for him to attack just for the 3rd night. Of course, Engelit knew that for the supernatural organization, the 3rd night was a battle for them to train. Chen Zhao had also said that he'd protect Ceylon and the others could fight however they wanted. But Engelit was afraid that his son would recklessly come and join in. The 3rd night might not be dangerous for them. However, he clearly remembered how dangerous Norma's 3rd night had been. And his son was still a newbie. Awakened less than 2 days ago, even an ordinary evil spirit could hurt him. Unless he stayed by the president's side and had the president protect him. But the president had to protect Ceylon. If Colin didn't listen and joined in, it'd be dangerous. That was why Engelit wanted Moore to watch over Colin. Moore really didn't want to be a nanny. But he didn't have the right to reject Engelit's request. Speaking of which, his daughter's awakening was more or less related to him. Depressed, Moore said, I'll go. I'll go to your wife's house. What should I say? Just say that a junior of mine has just arrived in San Jose and doesn't have a place to stay, so he's staying there for a night. Moore could only agree reluctantly. My son's ability is the same as mine. We've both awakened speed abilities. His ability level is very low right now. You can easily subdue him. Chapter 1592. Knock, knock. The door opened. Amy's mother opened it. She saw a young man standing in front of the door. Who are you looking for? Hi, Grandma. My dad is Uncle Engelite's friend. I just arrived in San Jose and don't have a place to stay, So Uncle Elite asked me to stay here for a day. Is that okay? Moore was carrying a backpack. His innocent face was very deceiving. Of course, of course. Come in. Amy's mother had some complaints about Elite, but she wouldn't take it out on someone who was still here. Thank you, Grandma. Moore looked at her sincerely. Actually, there were some missions in the supernatural organization that required disguises. Moore could also disguise himself as a harmless child. Therefore, for Moore, this level of disguise was a piece of cake. Child, what's your name? My name is Moore. I'm from Los Angeles. I'm here for school. You're only staying for a day? If you need, you can stay here forever. Thank you, Grandma, but it's okay. I have to report to school tomorrow. The school will open the dorms. Amy's mother thought about it. School was about to start for summer. If you need anything, you can come here anytime. You're coming alone? I asked for it. I'm an adult now. Just then, Amy's father walked in. Amy's mother then introduced Moore to her husband. Both husband and wife were getting on in years, and they were very concerned about Mo. Colin heard some noise outside. He pulled back the blanket and looked at the door. He saw a strange young man standing at the door. The strange young man was looking at him with a strange smile. The young man's eyes seemed to be saying that he knew him. Colin endured the pain and sat up. "For you. Your dad called me." Moore walked into Colin's bedroom with a smile. Colin looked at Moore in confusion. "My dad? Why did he call you here?" "To keep an eye on you." "Keep an eye on me?" Colin's mind was in a mess. "What do you mean?" "An elite was afraid that you would cause trouble, so he called me to keep an eye on you." "You're a spiritualist too?" Colin rolled his eyes. "Hee, little guy, keep an eye on me? Do you think you can do it?" "I think my father thinks you're a burden, so he tricked you here and asked me to watch over you." Whatever you think," Moore said indifferently. In fact, it wasn't that he didn't care at all, but he couldn't do anything about it. Since he had promised an elite, he could only bite the bullet and accept this mission. As for what Colin had said, that he was a burden? Moore snorted disdainfully. Moore sat on the swivel chair in front of the desk. Kellen looked at Moore and said provocatively, "Did I poke a sore spot? In fact, you know in your heart that you're a burden. You don't understand. You don't understand an elite, you don't understand me, and you don't understand our abilities. If I want to leave now, can you stop me?" Moore glanced at Colin. "You can try." Colin stood up, but as soon as he did so, the pain in his abdomen began to twist. "If I release my full speed, can you catch up to me?" Immerse took out a dagger and said, "If you dare step out of the room, believe it or not, I will die in front of you." Colin was stunned. "What did you just say? Are you mistaken?" "No, I'm serious." Moore looked at Colin seriously. Then, Moore suddenly punched himself in the chest. Poochie, blood spurted out. Colin was shocked. "What are you doing? Stop right now. You're crazy, you lunatic." Moore pulled out his dagger with a smile. Colin looked at Chen Zhao in shock. "This is your ability?" "Sort of. Do you want to know what my ability is?" Since it was Moore's power, Colin thought. That meant he wasn't injured. Colin nodded. "Tell your grandfather and grandmother that you're taking me out to play. We'll find a place with no one around." After Colin informed his grandparents, he brought Moore out of the house. Colin took Moore to the place where he had practiced his abilities the day before. "Let me see your ability," Colin said impatiently. Moore looked at Colin. "I'm standing before you. That means my ability." "What do you mean?" Suddenly, Moore self-destructed. For a moment, Colin's vision was a bloody mess. Kellen's mouth was agape as he stared at the horrifying scene in front of him. How could this be? What had happened? How could he explain this to his grandparents? How could he explain this to his father? Just as Colin was at a loss, a voice sounded. "How is it? Are you scared?" Colin turned his head and realized that Moore had been standing behind him for some time. "What's going on?" "Doppelganger spell." "That was my doppelganger," Moore said nonchalantly. Just then, another Moore appeared. Colin's face was filled with shock. "Amazing? Are you sure it's not a twin?" To Kalon, his ability was amazing, but at least it wasn't completely unacceptable. But Moore could create a doppelganger that looked exactly the same. This was unbelievable. Kalon hadn't come into contact with magic yet. He hadn't experienced the charm and mystery of magic. To him, any kind of magic could amaze and shock him. Bang! Moore's doppelganger exploded again. Then, another doppelganger appeared. "Do you believe me now?" "Yes, I believe you." Kalon nodded. "But your doppelganger spell doesn't seem very powerful. I'm just showing you my magic. If my doppelganger self-destructed, this place would be razed to the ground." "That powerful?" "Of course. I'm one of the elders of the supernatural organization." Supernatural organization? Kalon remembered that when an elite called him last night, he seemed to have mentioned this term. "It's the organization that your father and I are in. Your father is also one of the elders." "What does the supernatural organization do?" "On a larger scale, it's to maintain world peace," Moore said. "What about on a smaller scale?" "In Los Angeles, they beat up whoever they don't like. Whoever causes trouble in Los Angeles will be punished." "Can I join?" "That depends on your father's opinion and then our chairman's approval. Please remember this book's domain name. 9 Heavens Godly Emperor Mobile Version. Chapter 1593. "I understand that you need your president's permission," Kalon said bluntly. "But I'm an adult now. I don't need my father's approval for my decisions." "You don't need it, but we do," Moore said matter-of-factly. If not for an elite, Qin Zhao definitely wouldn't let Kalon join. Everyone could understand. Under Qin Zhao's leadership, everyone in the supernatural organization had become much stronger. Moreover, the resources and treatment in the association were much better than before. But every mission still had a certain amount of danger. Even Qin Zhao couldn't guarantee everyone's safety. For example, the underground exploration had been in danger because of this. If Qin Zhao hadn't arrived in time, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Of course, no one in the supernatural organization could shake Qin Zhao's authority. Moore still remembered how their lives had been before Qin Zhao became their president. Their monthly salary was enough to fill their stomachs. Their headquarters had been converted from a second-floor warehouse in that abandoned neighborhood. Moore had even worked part-time as a street thug. He even had to calculate if there was too much magic phosphorus. After Qin Zhao arrived, the first thing he did was kill the parasite Worcester. Then their good days came. Unknowingly, their strength had also increased to an unbelievable level. It was power that they had to look up to in the past. Qin Zhao might not have managed the organization. But to everyone in the association, Qin Zhao was the undisputed leader. "What if I surpass my dad?" Moore looked at Kalon in surprise. "An elite is many times stronger than you." "If he can do it, so can I," Kalon said decisively. "Let's not talk about whether you can do it or not. Even if you're stronger than an elite, the president won't agree." "Then I'll defeat your president." Whoosh! Moore's opinion of Kalon was that ignorance was bliss. "You don't understand how strong our president is. Everything depends on effort." "Fine, I admire your courage and confidence." Moore didn't have high hopes for Kalon, but he still admired his arrogance and confidence. "What's your ranking in the supernatural organization?" "I don't know." Moore thought for a moment. "Probably the bottom." "Then I'll start with you." "What do you mean by starting from me? Do you want to defeat me?" "That's right." Kalon nodded. "I don't think your doppelganger magic is stronger than mine." "I see. You can give it a try." Moore shrugged. Colin stared at Moore, then suddenly sped up. Colin had only wanted to push Moore down, not to hurt him. However, the moment Colin's hand touched Moore's, Moore had already grabbed Colin's wrist and kicked him again. Colin fell to the ground, his face full of shock. Because Moore had knocked him down with pure combat skills. "How could this be? I'm so much faster than you. Our association does not only train in magic, but also in combat." Moore said calmly, "Most of our opponents are close-range fighters. I'm the weakest fighter in the association. Your only advantage is speed, but your battle awareness is too weak. I don't believe it. I was just careless just now. Colin was more cautious this time. He swung his fist at Moore. But this time, he only took half a step back and tripped him. Because Colin was too fast, he rolled a few times on the ground before stopping. So weak. I didn't even use magic and you were already down. Moore smirked. Moore had passed the first level of the Tower of Trials. Every time he entered the Tower of Trials, he had to endure the attacks of hundreds of monsters. Even the weakest of battle awareness would transform him into a combat expert. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Colin stood up again and again, but was knocked down again and again by Moore. Colin felt that he was too embarrassed to show his face. His opponent was just a kid a few years younger than him. How could he play with him like a toy? After a few attempts, Colin didn't get up again. He wanted to try again. But he was already injured. After being knocked down by Moore a few more times, he was not only tired, but also in pain. Moore, who's stronger between you and my dad? Your dad. His current strength is close to the first tier. The first tier? Is it your president? No, the president is much stronger than the first tier. Even if all of us work together, we can't beat the president. That's strong. Colin didn't really have a concept of strength. He couldn't even figure out Moore's strength. Not to mention that Moore was talking about the first tier. As for Moore saying that he could raise this area to the ground, Colin didn't know that either. But Colin saw Moore talking about their president. The brilliance in his eyes was like the eyes of fans when they talked about their idols. He couldn't help but look down on him. You don't believe it? Moore asked with his head lowered. I'm just a beginner. Sooner or later, I'll beat all of you. The two left the area. Colin didn't plan to go home for now. Moore didn't care either. He just needed to stay by his side. Amy hurried to the hotel where Elite was staying. Because she found out that Elite had taken Ceylon away, and had done so without informing her. This made Amy's imagination run wild. She thought that Elite was going to divorce her and steal her child. And no matter how she called Elite today, his phone was always turned off. This made her even more furious. Amy knocked on the door of Angelite's room. "Me, why are you here?" Elite opened the door and looked at Amy in shock. "Where's Ceylon? Where did you hide her?" "Ceylon? Wait." Elite walked to the opposite door and knocked. At this time, the door opened and Amy saw an incredibly tall woman. Could it be that Elite liked this flavor? To be honest, Amy was really scared when she saw Gaia. Gaia seemed to be going through her second puberty. She was now 212 centimeters tall. Ceylon, come out. Mom's here. Ceylon rushed out of Gaia's room. Mom, why are you here? Amy looked at Gaia with a faint smile. Elite, aren't you going to introduce me? Chapter 1594. Hello, I'm Gaia. I'm Angelite's colleague. Colleague? Amy was still doubtful. Are you here for a holiday? To be precise, everyone from our company is here, Gaia said. Our company booked the entire hotel. The hotel wasn't big and it only cost a few $100,000 to book it for a day. To ensure that there wouldn't be too many ordinary people on the third night, they booked the entire hotel. Amy froze and turned to look at Elite. The entire floor is filled with our colleagues, Elite said. Didn't you resign from the insurance company? It's my new job, Elite said. I didn't tell you that I've been looking for a job outside. Then why did you lie to me? Ms. Amy, actually, our company's business is connected to the government and there's a confidentiality agreement. Elite just joined the company a few days ago and can't contact the outside world before he finishes his business. That's why he said he went abroad. Amy was dumbfounded. What was wrong with the plot? Then, why did he come back the day before yesterday? He gave up the business and signed a guarantee that he wouldn't leak secrets, so we let him go. Of course, his salary for this month is gone too, Gaia said. Hearing this, Amy's face turned green and red. She recalled Angelite's attitude. He insisted that he didn't cheat, but he still didn't want to talk about where he went. Amy blamed herself even more. Why don't I call everyone out so you can get to know them? Gaia said. Would there be some confidentiality clause? It's fine. They brought their families too, Gaia said with a smile. At Gaia's call, the doors opened one by one. Aimi saw that the group was very special. There were indeed a few children. There were also young people and 2 older ones. West was a shrewd old man. In addition, when Gaia knocked on the door just now, she had already given him some instructions. That was why West called himself the manager of the company. Aimi didn't dare to ask too much. She was worried that if she asked too much, she would come into contact with secrets and cause trouble for Enrich. Enrich, why didn't you tell me that you brought Ceylon to the hotel? I asked Kalon to tell you. Didn't he tell you? In any case, Enrich pushed the blame to his son. She believed that her son would keep it a secret for the sake of the family's peace. Amy, on the other hand, had been blaming herself. However, she had no other suspicions. After all, it was already a big deal to be able to book the entire hotel. If Enrich wanted to act, he wouldn't have made such a big scene. After Aimi and Enrich returned to their room, Aimi couldn't help but ask, Enrich, will I go to jail if I leak any secrets? I won't go to jail, but it will be very troublesome. Enrich said, I brought Ceylon here, not Kalon, because Kalon is old. If he discovers any secrets, it will be very troublesome, but Ceylon doesn't have this problem. Did you all bring confidential documents when you came out? No, but it's hard to avoid talking about work when colleagues are together. If I accidentally spill the beans, it will cause trouble for them. I'm just a new employee now, and I don't want to be isolated by my colleagues in the company. Aimi thought about it and felt that Angelite's worries were reasonable. I'll go back now, then Aimi can stay here for now. Enrich didn't expect the marriage crisis to be resolved so easily. But Aimi's attitude clearly softened. There was nothing to worry about Aimi staying here. There were children here anyway. The girl named Lisa seemed to be 2 or 3 years older than her daughter. Ceylon and Lisa were having a good time. When Aimi got out of the elevator, she saw an Asian man walking towards the elevator. Aimi's heart skipped a beat. You also work for the company? Qin Zhao was stunned. What company? Isn't Enrich your company's employee? Qin Zhao was stunned at first. Then he frowned. What did he say? Aimi was just testing him, but when she saw Qin Zhao's expression, she immediately understood. She immediately realized that by asking such an unnecessary question, would she be misunderstood as having come into contact with confidential information? Qin Zhao could roughly guess some things, although he did not know the specific situation. However, Qin Zhao still asked calmly, Lady, who are you to Enrich? I'm his wife, sir. I'm sorry, Enrich didn't tell me anything confidential. It's best if he didn't. Qin Zhao looked at Aimi with a scrutinizing gaze. But I'll have someone investigate whether he did or not. Sir, lady, I'm busy. Please, Qin Zhao said coldly. Aimi became even more worried. Would her words cause trouble for Enrich? Sir, I can cooperate with your investigation. Please don't fire Enrich. Lady, I know about you and Enrich, but I'll personally verify if he leaked any confidential information. With that, the elevator door closed. Aimi stood there, more and more worried. The Asian seemed to be an executive of the company. Judging from his aura and tone, he wasn't an ordinary employee. However, when Qin Zhao went upstairs, he asked about Angelite's specific situation. After learning about the situation, Qin Zhao also heaved a sigh of relief. Thankfully, it wasn't exposed. Otherwise, Enrich would probably divorce his wife. Fortunately, Qin Zhao had reacted quickly just now. Everything he said was ambiguous. They planned to have a party on the hotel's rooftop. Most importantly, it was Sealand's Night of Awakening. So, they could solve Sealand's Night of Awakening while they were having a party. The hotel staff had already started arranging and decorating the rooftop. Everyone went to the rooftop one after another. At this time, the sun had just set, and the party had already begun. West sat with Ceylon and tried to get close to the girl. West's idea was simple. Ceylon was the third witch to awaken. Her future was immeasurable. If she could join the supernatural organization, She would definitely become a powerful witch like Hallie's or Norma. Then, with Angelite's approval, the organization would have another powerful fighter. As for Angelite's attitude, Chen Zhao could slowly work on it. When the time came, Chen Zhao would let nature take its course. He wouldn't be angry whether an elite wanted his daughter to join the supernatural organization or not. Please remember the original domain name of this book, 9 Heavens Godly Emperor Mobile Version. Chapter 1595. By now, the sky had already darkened. Colin and Moore walked on the street. "Don't you have money?" Moore complained as he looked at Colin. Colin blushed at Moore's words. "Do you know that my monthly income is over $10,000? But you still don't have money." "I just didn't bring it," Moore said. "It's a bit cold." Colin suddenly shivered. Just then, Moore stopped and looked into the distance. "What's wrong?" Colin looked at Moore, who had stopped. Just then, Colin saw a white shadow fly over their heads. "That's the third night is coming," Moore said. Right now, all the evil spirits in San Jose were attracted there. Huh? The Night of Awakening? Nala Miris saw a few evil spirits fly over her head. "Looks like it's coming from that direction." Nala Miris thought for a while and decided to go over to take a look. Of course, if it was within her power, she would also help him. Many awakened witches didn't have anyone to protect them. Sometimes, they didn't even know that danger was approaching. Also, there were very few spiritualists in San Jose. You could count them on your fingers. If necessary, they would help each other. Helping a witch through the Night of Awakening could also add some liveliness to the spiritual world of San Jose. Just at this moment, a threatening chill spread over. Nala Miris shivered. She saw a huge ball of cold air moving at a slow speed not far away. Nala Miris was shocked. Was that the frost evil spirit that wandered the coast? That was an evil spirit that had occupied the west coast of San Jose for decades. Many spiritualists had tried to eliminate it, but they all failed. They even hired spiritualists from other places, but to no avail. Whenever they found the victims, they would find their bodies frozen solid, as if they had just floated over from the North Pole. Could it be that the Night of Awakening had attracted the evil spirit here? If that was the case, it would be troublesome. Wherever the ball of cold air passed, a cold wind would blow. The ordinary people below could not see the cold air mass. They only felt that the temperature had suddenly dropped to the freezing point. Frost condensed on the car windows, and the passers-by all huddled together. Nala Miris knew that the evil spirit was originally a person who had frozen to death. Furthermore, after decades of doing evil, not only did it not dissipate, it even grew stronger. Nala Miris was confident that she was the strongest witch in San Jose. But against that frost evil spirit, she wasn't confident. Nala Miris sighed. She had actually attracted this frost evil spirit. It seemed that this awakened was in deep trouble. If they could save him this time, they would. If they couldn't, they could only retreat. Nala Miris didn't want to put herself in danger. Nala Miris continued to move forward, following the frost evil spirit from a distance. The evil frost spirit's movement speed was not fast. It usually hid in the sea and would only surface when it found its target. He reckoned that it wouldn't be able to unleash its full strength on land since it wasn't its home ground. Just then, in the distance of San Jose, an obvious arc of flame swept across the sky. The arc of flame was in the opposite direction of where Nala Miris was, dozens of kilometers away. But the arc of flame was extremely bright and very obvious. That's the burning fire demon of Dongqing Street? Why was it attracted to this place? Is the awakened the second night? Nala Miris's expression changed dramatically. The burning fire demon of Dongqing Street. It wasn't an ordinary burning fire demon, but a monster countless times more terrifying than the burning fire demon. 15 years ago, a fire engulfed a hospital in Dongqing Street. After that, the hospital became the breeding ground of the monster. Dozens of burning fire evil spirits born from the flames attacked and devoured each other. In the end, they formed the burning fire demon. The demon of scorching fire had actually left its lair. Nala Miris's expression was uncertain. Should she still go? If it was the second night of awakening, it was definitely not something she could handle. But Nalamiris was a little curious. She had never seen the second night of awakening. This was also a rare opportunity. Maybe she could watch from afar. Just then, a car suddenly stopped by the side of the road. Two acquaintances got out of the car. One was a short fatty, and the other was a white-haired woman. The two of them were quite famous in San Jose as they were a couple. Of course, their fame wasn't in the spiritual world. There were only a few people in the spiritual world. Everyone saw each other all the time, and everyone knew each other. They were famous among ordinary people. Since the two of them had appeared on TV before, they were considered to be a pretty good couple in San Jose's spiritual world. Of course, they weren't scammers. They had real skills. "Miris, did you also go in that direction?" the short fatty Oakfield asked. "Yes. Did you also notice that the night of awakening was going in that direction?" Nalamiris nodded. "We found the evil spirit nest, but just as we were about to eradicate the evil spirit nest, the evil spirits in the evil spirit nest seemed to be rioting. They suddenly rushed out and all headed in that direction." Evil spirit nest? Is it that mysterious evil spirit organization? Nalamiris asked in surprise. In the past year, a piece of news had been circulating in San Jose. Somewhere in San Jose, a group of self-aware evil spirits had gathered and formed an organization. This evil spirit organization had a strict internal structure, and their actions were secretive. Some of the recent supernatural incidents were related to this evil spirit organization. The spiritualists in San Jose were also looking for this evil spirit organization. "Yes," Oakfield said. "It seems to be affected by the night of awakening. Those evil spirits have become extremely crazy." Oakfield's wife, Chromia, had a serious expression. "I just got a call from Sesame. She said that she found the souls of the evil beasts heading in that direction." "What? Even the souls of the evil beasts were attracted by the night of awakening? I've seen the second night once, and it definitely wasn't this influential. It seems that it's not just in San Jose. Even the evil spirits in the surrounding areas are affected. This might be the third night." Nalamiris' expression changed drastically. "The third night? Is it really the third night? The legendary third night. Did people really awaken on the third night?" Chapter 1596. Is it that hotel? The three arrived at the hotel. Evil spirits had formed a huge whirlpool above the hotel. The whirlpool circled the hotel from top to bottom. They had never seen such a scene before. "So scary. Is this the third night?" Nalamiris, Oakfield, and Chromia were all veterans of the battlefield. But now, they didn't dare to approach the hotel at all. It was too scary. It was like the end of the world. The moon was completely covered by dark clouds. Large numbers of evil spirits were also gathering here. "So scary. That awakened is dead for sure." They weren't gloating. It was this terrifying scene that caused them to shrink back. If it was the first night, they could still help. The second night wasn't something they could do anything about. But now, they were facing the third night. It was the beginning of despair for anyone. No one would think that the third night was lucky. The third night also represented a 1-in-a-million talent in magic. But first, it had to survive the terrifying calamity of life. That was the most despairing thing. "No matter how many times I experience it, I'm shocked every time I see the third night," Gaia exclaimed. Chen Zhao sat on the sofa and put his arm around Si Lan's shoulder. "Si Lan, are you scared?" "Dad, Uncle, Auntie, and Sister Lisa will protect me." Si Lan shook her head. Actually, she was still scared, but she still faced it with determination. "I didn't think that there would be so many evil spirits in a small city like San Jose." The strength of the night of awakening didn't just depend on the day of awakening. It also depended on the geographical environment. If there were many evil spirits in a city, the attack on the night of awakening would be strong. If there were no evil spirits, the attack would be weak. The night of awakening wouldn't create evil spirits out of nowhere to attack the awakened. Of course, each awakened's area of influence on the night of awakening was different. For example, when Qinzhao's daughter Larissa was born, her area of influence wasn't just one city. She was a regional influence. But Ceylon clearly didn't have that much influence. To be honest, apart from an elite, everyone was more relaxed. All the employees in the hotel were unconscious. Chen Zhao cast a large banshee's charm. He was mainly afraid that they would cause trouble, and he was also afraid that they would accidentally injure them on the third night. Originally, everyone wanted to go to the suburbs for the third night. However, the risk of the third night was even greater. Yingjili was mainly worried about this. Suddenly, an evil spirit descended from the sky, pouncing straight at Ceylon. Chen Zhao reached out and crushed it. The battle began. The vortex formed by the evil spirits in the sky suddenly became intense. A large number of evil spirits fell from the sky. The flaming sword in Gaia's hand spun in a circle, and more than a dozen evil spirits were instantly killed. Jalanash raised her arms and dozens of fireballs rose into the air. In an instant, the dozens of fireballs exploded in mid-air, and at least 30 evil spirits were drawn into them. There's a spiritualist with that awakened? Nala Milis saw a flash on the roof of the hotel. The light from the explosion of the dozens of fireballs was quite eye-catching. He looks like a very powerful elemental magician. It's indeed very powerful, but that spell should have exhausted his mana, right? Look at the sky full of evil spirits. This elemental magician can't change the situation. It shouldn't be hard for this elemental magician to protect himself, but he actually interfered with the third night. I'm afraid he won't be able to escape now. What a pity. Such a powerful spiritualist. Too many. There are too many evil spirits. Nala Miris shook her head. However, just when they thought that the battle would end quickly, they realized that it was still going on. The evil spirits continued to rush to the rooftop of the hotel. Hey, it seems like the elemental magician isn't dead yet. He's still resisting. Suddenly, hundreds of chains shot into the sky from the roof. The chains were all burning with green flames. Then, each of the chains tied up an evil spirit and dragged it down. Whoosh! The three of them sucked in a breath of cold air. Such a powerful spell. Did you see that? It's too powerful. What spell is that? One spell had killed hundreds of evil spirits in an instant. This method was truly shocking. The three thought that they were elites among spiritualists, but when they saw the spell, they were still shocked. I don't know, but it's clear that there's more than one spiritualist up there. It's definitely not San Jose's spiritualist. San Jose doesn't have such a powerful spiritualist. Plus, everyone basically knows each other's strength and magic. Whoosh! Suddenly, a huge vine sprang up from the rooftop. Hundreds of smaller vines extended out from the vine plant, waving about non-stop. The three people before 9 o'clock were shocked again. Amazing. This is plant magic, right? This is the first time I've seen it. Plant magic is this powerful? It's not plant magic that's powerful, but the person who cast it, Clomia said solemnly. It's too powerful. Who's protecting this awakened on the roof? There are actually so many powerful spiritualists protecting him. At this moment, the battle on the rooftop was very intense. Some of the spells were very obvious, and could even be said to be gorgeous. But some spells weren't so obvious. For example, Klaus and the members of the Lightning Squad. Each of them held 2 guns. They were in charge of shooting. In the past, they used bullets soaked in holy water. But now, their bullets were soaked in dragon blood. Their damage to evil spirits was unparalleled. Each of them had their own area to fight in. No one would recklessly enter someone else's territory. But some people's magic range was too large. It was inevitable that they would invade someone else's territory. Morid, your spell stole all the monsters that belonged to me, Giselle complained. I didn't do it on purpose, Morid said disapprovingly. But when Morid saw an elite jumping onto his vine to steal the monsters, he immediately shouted, Morid, you can't steal the monsters so blatantly. These evil spirits are all coming for my daughter. Of course I can, an elite said matter-of-factly. Harold crossed her legs and sat on the long table. Occasionally, when an evil spirit approached her, she would throw out an evil spirit fong. She wasn't interested in normal evil spirits. She set her sights on those powerful evil spirits. The powerful evil spirits hadn't entered yet, so she wasn't in a hurry to act. Chapter 1597. Most of the evil spirits that were attacking directly were mindless evil spirits. There were also some evil spirits that were not only rational, but also very cunning. Taking advantage of this, they started devouring their own kind. A few terrifying hybrid evil spirits appeared in the sky. That's terrifying. Nala was shocked. Can the spiritualists on the rooftop really deal with evil spirits of this level? The huge hybrid evil spirits in the sky had frighteningly strong auras. Every single one of them had a ferocious and terrifying appearance. There were also a few special evil spirits. They did not participate in the devouring of ordinary evil spirits. However, they were already much more powerful than ordinary evil spirits. For example, the frost evil spirit on the west shore and the fire demon. There were also a few that were above and below them. Suddenly, a huge evil spirit hybrid flashed a few times in the sky. It seemed to be able to teleport short distances. Its main body was an evil spirit with special abilities. Then, it used its special ability to devour many evil spirits. At the moment, it was 5 meters tall and extremely bloated. After a few flashes, it charged at Ceylon. Chen Zhao waved his hand casually and the flashing evil spirit's huge body was smashed through the ground. Boom! Outside the hotel, Nala, Chromia, and Oakfield all heard a loud bang. Then, they saw something pierce through the outer wall of the hotel. Then, it smashed toward them diagonally. The three hurriedly jumped away, only to see the thing smash into the car beside them. The car was instantly smashed into scrap metal. There was a huge crater on the concrete floor. When the three returned to their original position, they saw the remains of an evil spirit hybrid. They did not know what kind of attack it had suffered. The shape of its body was almost unrecognizable. All that was left was a mass of filthy spirit mixed with evil aura. The filthy mass no longer had any aura. No matter what it used to be, it was already dead. But from the trajectory of its fall, it was easy to imagine how powerful the attack had been. It had probably been smashed from above on the rooftop. Then it pierced through the ceiling of the rooftop. Then it pierced through the outer wall of the hotel. When it finally fell, it hit their car. A huge crater appeared on the ground due to its impact. It was hard to imagine just how powerful this attack was. At this moment, a huge figure descended from the sky. That huge figure was also a giant hybrid of evil spirits. It landed on the roof of the car, grabbed the filthy substance with its big hands, and swallowed it. Every time it swallowed a mouthful, its body would grow larger and more terrifying. The three of them were still in a state of shock. This evil spirit hybrid was simply too terrifying. When it finished swallowing the filthy matter, its body had already grown to 8 meters. With a terrifying aura around him, he turned his head to look at the three of them. The three of them immediately prepared for battle. Split up! Nala Miris shouted, and the three of them scattered at the same time. They had no intention of fighting such a monster. There was no way he could defeat this evil spirit hybrid. Facing it head-on would only lead to death. Just as they were guessing who this evil spirit hybrid was going to pursue, a voice suddenly rang out. Another loud noise came from behind. Nala Miris turned around and saw a tall figure stepping on the evil spirit's chest. The tall figure held a blazing greatsword in his hand. When the flaming greatsword pierced through the evil spirit hybrid's chest, the evil spirit hybrid roared in a frenzy. But as the flames began to spread on the evil spirit hybrid's body, the evil spirit hybrid's voice began to weaken and finally disappeared. Then, the tall figure spread a pair of red wings and soared into the sky. The three of them watched the figure return to the roof before returning to their original spot. That person is also a spiritualist? Probably. So powerful, I've never seen such a powerful spiritualist. That seems to be a woman. She actually managed to destroy a terrifying hybrid of evil spirits so easily. Where are they from? San Jose? No, even San Francisco doesn't have such a powerful spiritualist. Although I don't know where they are from, their strength is indescribable. They should be members of some powerful organization. There's no lack of monster-like people in this world. What kind of organization can gather so many powerful spiritualists? Moore and Kalon also looked at the direction of the hotel from afar. When Kalon saw the whirlpool of evil spirits dancing in the sky, he was already indescribably shocked. The scene was far beyond his imagination. Moore, can the supernatural organization really protect Ceylon? Don't worry, it's just a small matter. With our president around, it's nothing. Just relax. How could he relax? Kalon looked at the sky above the hotel nervously. He really had the urge to join the battle. But Emo was staring at him like a hawk. Moore actually wanted to join the battle too. However, he knew what was important and what was not. His mission was to watch Kalon. The third night might not be a problem for the supernatural organization. But now, Chen Zhao was definitely in charge of protecting Ceylon. If Kalon joined the battle, he wouldn't be able to do anything. Would he have to split his attention to protect Kalon then? At this moment, a bright light rose from the rooftop of the hotel. Even from a few kilometers away, Mal and Kalon could clearly see the light. The beam of light suddenly exploded after reaching a height of several hundred meters. It was like the most beautiful fireworks. In an instant, 1/3 of the evil spirits in the sky disappeared. The whirlpool of evil spirits also became much thinner. So powerful. Colin's face was filled with shock. Is that magic? Why does it look like fireworks to me? That should be Jalanash's magic. She's best at group attack spells, Moore said. She's the best at this. Better than the president? No, we never compare ourselves to our president. If we compare ourselves to him in everything, there's no way we can compare ourselves. Moore shrugged helplessly. Kalon pursed his lips. Along the way, whenever their president was mentioned, Moore would always have an almost brainless attitude. His president was better at everything. It seemed like his president was better at everything. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.